12 o'clock on your Monday afternoon. Welcome in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head and Terry Ford along with you on this Monday, July the 1st, halfway through the year. And really, when you talk about things from especially a college sports perspective, we are really kind of starting the new year. As we've talked about so many times this morning, this is the official day that all the conferences across college football, all the major ones at least, welcome in their new members. Texas and Oklahoma, officially members of the SEC. They had a parade or some kind of thing on the SEC network last night. Sankey was there. Apparently Pitbull was playing a concert out there. The whole 9 yards of welcoming in those two schools. The Longhorn Network officially went dark last night after showing the 06 Rose Bowl game for the 80,000th time of Texas beating Southern Cal. And that was all she wrote for that is now that you're in the SEC, hey, you don't get your own network anymore. Sorry, guys. And also, we're going to do horns down around here a lot more, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Did they turn the horns down at the end of the network?
I don't know.
And that just showed an image of horns down?
Which I guess because it's still an ESPN network, they have no ill will towards them. But if it was like, I don't know, let's just say Fox controlled the Longhorn Network, maybe that would have been their parting gift. Like, yeah, screw you guys. Here you go.
How much fun would that have been?
Which you know that Horns Down will not be in the new EA Sports video game because apparently they got their feelings hurt about that too much. So they're like,
serious?
Well, you can't let that be in the game, even though what's going to happen in every opposing venue they go into this year, with I guess the exception of Vanderbilt.
It might even happen to Vanderbilt.
The one Vanderbilt fan there.
The one that's there studying.
As they're getting beaten by 50 points.
The one that's using it for a study hall looks up and go, oh, that's right, there's a game. Horns down. It just, don't be so thin-skinned. Come on.
And that's the thing about Texas, right? They're full of themselves. Like, we're well aware of that. But it's like this pompousness where, and they got the special treatment of the Big 12 because, again, they were the Big 12's cash cow. They did not want to see Texas and Oklahoma leave because that cost that league a lot of money. So they bent the knee. They catered to Texas at every whim, gave them their own network, assessed 15-yard penalties for the horns down thing. Like, it's going to be a little different when you come into the SEC now.
SEC doesn't care. And they're like, oh, you don't like horns down? Yeah. Guess what? Horns down.
And it didn't help when your basketball coach burst into tears every time somebody did it last year.
We had a couple of Texas fans hit us up on the text line, and we read them for Firehouse Subtext the Hour. It's like, look, most Texas fans get its gamesmanship.
Sure.
It's the university that gets so butthurt about it.
Yeah, it's the upper echelon of folks out there.
It's very simple. Just, win, and who cares?
Exactly.
I think it's funny that this big celebration over the weekend for Texas and Oklahoma coming in. Oh, where was that at, Tyler?
That was Austin, Texas.
Did they have one also in Norman, Oklahoma?
Not one that was televised. Which Joe Castiglio, the AD of Oklahoma, was in Austin last night for this introduction, which I think is like, man.
Okay, so, and this is why, this once again is the 4 billionth example of the world. Who's had the better football program ever between Oklahoma and Texas?
I think technically Oklahoma.
Who's been better since the year 2000?
Definitely Oklahoma.
Okay. Where was this thing at again?
Austin, Texas.
Because Oklahoma was a very, very, very well financially oiled machine. But
they are. Not as oiled as Texas.
No one's oiled like Texas. So we see why the SEC is putting lips on Longhorn backside.
Right.
We get it. It's the money. That's just flat out what it is, which even makes you laugh harder at Texas and Texas A&M. For as much money as they spend, how underachieving they are. It's entertaining. It just is. Flat out entertaining to watch. And by the way, two programs will almost do anything to win. And yeah, look, Texas A&M won the College World Series. Good for you. Or finished second in the College World Series, behind Tennessee. Good for you. You got there. You almost won. Texas got the college football playoff. Almost came back and beat UW to take on Michigan for the championship. Good for you. Now A&M lost the coach that was getting them to the College World Series, 2 out of his 3 years. And we'll get to their hire, which is a head-scratcher. And Texas, everybody's screaming, hey, Texas is back. Well, 1 year doesn't make you back. 1 year is, hey, you had a hell of a year, but you're not back. Do it again and again and again, like the other high-level programs do. Just saying. But it is funny. If you're Oklahoma, you're like, wait a minute. Even last year, where you want to say Texas was better than us, fine, we still won 10 games. And we've been in the college football playoff how many times? Really?
Was it 4?
Yeah,
I think
they've
it was
been about 4 times under Lincoln Riley.
Now,
And they've won how many Big 12 championships?
All those Big 12 championship games, now they never won any of those college football playoff games because they couldn't play any defense.
Exactly.
But still, they made it. And Texas, there's a reason why Texas's back is such a joke because they were never anywhere close to being back under Tom Herman, under Charlie Strong. It was just this running gag. And finally last year, give them the credit.
Yeah,
they finally
absolutely.
put together the season 12-2, made the Sugar Bowl the whole 9 yards. If you can keep that going, all right, now we're on to something. But like you said, we need more than 1 year of a sample size.
You got to get more than 1 year. And we'll talk about this in a grander scale for other teams and other leagues. But it's just this idea, and we'll get, I'll save it for the Quinn Ewers cut because the Quinn Ewers cut's interesting. And it leads to the conversation of Texas and the SEC.
Right.
And we'll get to that. I don't want to go down that road yet. But it is funny how we as a college football media seems like no one is taking into account, yeah, you were good in your league, but you're in a whole different world now, whether it's from the Pac-12 to the Big 12, the Pac-12 to the ACC, Pac-12 to the Big 10, Big 12 to the SEC. You're changing leagues. And for some teams, that accounts for something. Last time I checked, who's a better league than the SEC?
I mean,
you want to put the list together?
None really. I mean, the
Right.
Big Ten's up there, but I wouldn't say they're better.
They're not better. The SEC is the best league in college football. You just think Texas is going to walk into the SEC and compete for a championship with no problem?
Probably not.
And we're going to get into this more later. It's one thing to play an SEC team in your non-conference or play an SEC team in a bowl game or play an SEC team in the college football playoff. It's one thing to play that one game for that 1 week, right?
Sure.
Okay, now go play 9 of them.
Or 8.
Or 8, rather.
Well, if you made the championship game, that'd be 9.
Be 9.
Yeah.
So go play 8, 9 games in the SEC. Week after week after week after week after week.
Also,
against a lot of future NFL players.
They also play Michigan in their non-conference in week number 2. So that is, what could be the equivalent of a 9th type of game.
Depending on what Michigan ends up being, exactly.
Sure.
See, and early in the year, Michigan still feels like they're the national champion, Michigan.
Oh, totally.
Later on, once they get beaten down a bit, they won't be. But they're still going to feel like, hey, we're the national champions.
Sure.
So this idea that Texas is just going to waltz their way into the SEC and do what they did last year. You see some of the games they almost lost last year in the Big 12?
Yeah. I remember.
So, okay. All right. It feels like no one in the media, because everybody gets so enamored with Texas, and the college football media wants Texas to be good so bad.
Well, that's an easy selling point.
Huge, because everybody wants the big brands to be good because they think it's good for business.
Sure.
I just think college football's business is good for business right now.
Yeah.
It's not, we got to have Texas good, or we got to have this program, we got to have that. No, I just think the health of college football as an entity, no matter, forget they can't get out of their own way. Forget all that. It's just the business of the fan and how they are watching and consuming college football. That's bigger than, we got to have this team go to that. But the college football world they love themselves some Texas, just like they love Notre Dame.
Well, it's very much like the drive-by casual audience of college football.
Mm-hmm.
They know Texas as a brand. Now, again, they probably don't know that Texas has been down outside of the 2 trips they made to the national championship in the mid-2000s. But, I think a lot of people just kind of naturally assume Texas is always going to be one of the best programs. And again, last year that was certainly the case. Mm-hmm. But again, we need to see sustained success with that.
Exactly.
But if you have a casual person saying, hey, Texas playing in the Rose Bowl. I'll watch that. Sure. Texas, that's cool. You know what I mean? Like they pull in casual eyes just like the Dallas Cowboys do on the NFL side of things. You know what I mean? They have that kind of brand recognition that gets different eyeballs on the sport.
And just like Notre Dame, same way. If Notre Dame and Texas win a game, they shoot up the polls like nobody's business. It's hilarious. They fly up the polls.
That was I mean, my dad hates Notre Dame with every fiber of his being, and you know he talks about, like, you know, back in the 80s and 90s when Notre Dame was a perennial national championship contender every single year. He was like, yeah, it feels like they could lose a game and still gain 5 spots in the AP poll.
Oh yeah, I mean now, you know, again, Notre Dame is a name brand, and they got, you know, maybe our new version of Cliff Kingsbury and Coach Freeman.
So dreamy.
He's just dreamy. You look at him and you're mesmerized by his dreaminess. And, you know, so people are like, oh, Notre Dame. Okay. The thing is, the anti-Freeman has been the best coach they've had since Lou Holtz, and that was Brian Kelly.
Yep.
He is the complete opposite of Freeman.
Not the easiest one to look at.
Not dreamy.
Good football coach.
Oh, high-level football coach, but not dreamy. Doesn't swagger in, you know, mesmerizing people with his charisma and looks.
In fact, his attempts to be cool usually kind of fall flat on their face, for being honest.
Yes. But again, that's what this goes back to. We're in such a world of, you know, the flashiness or like, you know, style over substance and all those things. And that's the thing about it.
Well, you know, if Texas is good, that means Matthew McConaughey is going to be on the sidelines.
And hey,
which apparently, when I didn't see this last night, but when Sankey opened up his remarks last night in Austin, he began with "all right, all right, all right."
And again, if you're Oklahoma, you're just standing there like this. What?
What? Okay, if they were in Norman, right? What could he have done to relate locally to open up in Oklahoma?
Would he come in the Sooner Schooner?
Maybe.
I don't.
Say, hey, I had to dodge a tornado to get here.
Yeah. Let's think of the great Oklahomans that would equal Matthew McConaughey.
I'm struggling.
Top of my head, Garth Brooks. Garth Brooks is from Oklahoma.
Yeah. When Toby Keith, wasn't he a big
And Toby Keith was from Oklahoma.
fan?
He was a semi-pro football player or something. Toby Keith.
True.
So we go Garth Brooks and Toby Keith. I don't know. They don't have a cool catchphrase like Matthew McConaughey, though.
Maybe you can reference like Red Solo Cup, I guess.
Yeah, you could maybe.
I don't think that I don't think that quite hits the same as the all right.
No, really doesn't.
He was proud of himself for that one.
Yeah. So anyway, Texas and Oklahoma are in. We're going to get in a bunch of that on the show. Nick Emanwari talking at the Palmetto autograph event. Emanwari discussing this defense. And obviously, Nick is stoked for the upcoming season on the defensive side of the ball. Should you be stoked about the defense? We'll hear from Nick and kind of give some thoughts on that next. And we appreciate you listening, whether you're in Columbia on 107.5 The Game, you're in Florence, 100.3 The Game. Oh, no, 100.5 The Game. Jeez. Myrtle Beach at 100.3 The Game. You're watching on The Game TV. We appreciate that if you're doing that. And if you want to do that, you go to YouTube at The Game TV Radio, or if you have the app, you've downloaded the 107.5 The Game app, iTunes, Google Play, and you're listening to us while you're walking around with your phone. However you're hanging with the game today, we appreciate it. We'll come back. Nick Emanwari, his thoughts about the defenses coming up season, and should you be as geeked as Nick? It's a halftime show with Terry Ford and Tyler Head up until 3 on The Game. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, till 3 here on the game. Sweet deals. We still have our craft beer passport, craft beer card available. Basically, it's $360 worth of craft beer drinking for $79. Want to find out more? Just go to 1075thegame.com, click on Sweet Deals, and check out the craft beer passport. 12 different locations, $30 a pop. Only $79 for $360 worth of craft beer lusciousness. Tyler Head.
Which, it's really hot right now, so an ice-cold craft beer, good at cooling you down.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And again, Elijah Campbell and Jay Phillips would happily be your craft beer guides.
For sure. I'm still working on the craft beer that Jay gave all of us, Christmas?
But by the way, how funny was it? Jay and the family's faces are on the can.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
It's like, how, which Jay is obviously well known around here, but how much pull do you have to get your face on a beer can?
So good. It was so good. So, yes, Jay and Elijah will be happy to help you in your craft beer drinking. So you can check that out, 1075thegame.com, click on Sweet Deals. All right, Nick Emanwari talking to the media at the Palmetto Autograph session, the Palmetto Autograph event. I want to focus in on cuts 5 and 6 real quick, Tyler. Let's start off with Nick talking about the South Carolina defense in 2024 will be historic.
This defense, I think we get a lot of dudes drafted from this defense, man. We can probably see a little bit like a historical defense from this team. We got a lot of dudes up front: T.J. Sanders, Boogie, Tonk, Debo Williams, Bam Martin-Scott, me, DQ in the back end, O.D., Jalen. This defense is going to be crazy, so it's just something to see. A fun defense this year.
All right, so we'll think about, could this be a historical defense in South Carolina this year? We saw the last month of the season, and we saw this defense become one of the best defenses in the conference in November, right? We went over the numbers and the stats.
Correct.
When they switched to that 3-3-5 and started using that 3-3-5, the defense woke up. All of a sudden, there was more heat on quarterbacks. They kind of changed some of their coverage schemes in the back end to help, deal with some of the issues they were having in coverage. And all of a sudden, defensively, this thing was a different animal. You lost to Clemson, didn't give up an offensive touchdown.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's easy to look at the fact saying, okay, you played Vanderbilt, you played Jacksonville State. Yes, those are lesser opponents that did help out those numbers a little bit, but you still played a very good defensive game against a Clemson team that, while down from what they've been in years past, was still a pretty solid team overall. So, again, I think that goes back to what we said, where the defense as a whole noticeably got better in the month of November. Now, do you take what you learned in that last month with that 3-3-5 and what you were able to implement on that side of the ball, and do you carry it over into this new season? We know there's a lot of conversation that you're going to take elements from what you're doing at the end of last season as the base of what your defense can be this year. We'll see if it translates to being better overall this year.
In the last 3 games, the team gave up 27 points.
Yes.
Now, again, is it Vanderbilt, Kentucky, Clemson? Yes. Clemson's offense had issues. Kentucky's offense wasn't as good as they were hoping it was going to be, and Vanderbilt is Vanderbilt. But I always flip this around, Tyler. What if you got worked by those 3 teams?
Yeah, it's like if they came in here and scored 30 and 40 points apiece, we'd have a different conversation. So you did make a step forward in improvement. And again, when you found out, the 3-3-5 worked with guys like Bam Martin-Scott, that opened up, different things on your defense that, again, gives us a little bit more of a blueprint on what it might look like going into this year as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, you did what you're supposed to do against 3 teams that didn't have the most explosive offenses. You didn't let them score.
Sure.
Vanderbilt scored a junk touchdown in the 4th quarter. And the Kentucky game, remember, that game was that was an interesting football game.
It was.
And, again, South Carolina got the game-winning score late, mid-4th quarter. But then the defense got stops.
Mm-hmm.
And you had 2 touchdowns you gave up in the Kentucky game, 2 long drives, and that was it. 1 touchdown in junk time against Vandy, and 0 offensive touchdowns against Clemson.
Right.
I mean, that's good work against anybody in today's football.
For sure.
So you take that, and then you look at this team. And up front, you got a ton of experience in the interior of the defensive line. You brought in Kyle Kennard, who is a good edge player last year at Georgia Tech. You brought in Dylan Stewart, the fancy 5-star edge pass rushing recruit. To the other guys you do have at the edge, you have, again, Des Yu, 4-star from the year before. Brian Thomas popped the last 2 years in the spring. It'd be nice if he'd pop in the fall. You got a lot of depth up front on the edge and the interior. Linebackers where you might have made the biggest improvement on the defense.
Definitely.
Adding, Demetrius Knight and adding Kamara. Plus, you brought in a couple of young freshman linebackers. Plus, you have Debo coming back, and you have Bam Martin-Scott, who no one, I think, caught everybody's eye more in November than Bam Martin-Scott.
Right.
Now, and look, again, I don't want this to be negative. Last year, you're playing Debo next to Stone Blanton. Stone Blanton seems like a nice guy.
Sure.
Solid human being. Was not a difference maker at linebacker in the SEC. Just wasn't. I'm not trying to be mean.
No, not at all. And I think you look between losing him and Pup Howard, who, again, a lot of hype coming in, got his opportunities on the field, didn't do a whole lot in his freshman year.
Just wasn't ready.
Wasn't ready, and that's fine. Not everybody's going to come in and set the world on fire in year number one, but when you replace Stone Blanton and Pup Howard with Demetrius Knight and Bengali Kamaro, I think you can comfortably say you upgraded at the linebacker spot.
Absolutely you did.
And that hopefully takes a little off Debo Williams' plate, because dude was playing every snap last year, having to run sideline to sideline, let's give this guy a breath every now and then.
And what you're hoping is you can rotate these 4 guys. They all get a decent amount of snaps. You're fresher in the fourth quarter. Like you're saying, Debo's tongue isn't dragging on the field. And 2, another year of experience for Debo Williams. Maybe some of those rough edges of his game will smooth out in the final year where, he just, diagnoses better at the line of scrimmage.
Sure.
He's athletic. He'll pop and make a big play for you. The guy's intense. He has a lot of great intangibles. But that diagnosing at the line of scrimmage and, sometimes going to the wrong gaps or guessing wrong or just flying in without, maybe taking that minute to, understand what your best move is at that moment. Maybe some of those things will smooth out for Debo Williams. And then he takes that athletic ability and that intensity and goes up 2 notches. Right. Who knows? So the linebacker room is really improved. Secondary, you got one question mark. Corner. Yes. You got O'Donnell Fortune. He was, he was fine last year. And then you got your safeties who hopefully with a year of experience and with some new coverage schemes like at the end of last year, those guys can play to their strengths, right?
Right.
And not play to their weaknesses. Either it's Judge Collier or whoever else it could be at corner. Maybe Vakari Swain, we'll see. This defense, it feels like they have the ability to be really good this year.
Yeah.
A lot of experience, a lot of potential, whether it's veterans, transfer portal guys, recruits coming in from high school. You got athleticism. This defense could be really good.
The experience up front on the defensive line alone, I think, we know you live and die by what happens in the trenches. You went up front, you can slow the run, get some good pass rush up there. Hopefully everything falls in line behind that.
And let's get cut 6 real quick from Nick talking about, Nick said, screw this, man. I'm going to put my name on it.
For sure. We came in a little bit more different this year. Like, we coming in, we're different mindset. We just seen some things. We don't want to experience what we experienced last year, so we're trying to get the most out we can out this defense. And it's gonna be a crazy defense this year. I'll say that. I'll put my name on it. I'll stamp that for sure. So we're gonna do this year for sure.
Confidence is a beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
And look, this defense also. Let's just be honest. The offense has a ton of question marks, a ton of ability, but a ton of question marks.
Yep.
So this offense might need a little bit of time to get its feet, right? So this defense might have to really carry the load the first month of the year while this offense is figuring itself out. And then hopefully by the time the offense figures itself out, then you're really ready to, take it up another notch.
You need to have it all figured out by October. You got a month.
Ready for October?
Yeah.
Ole Miss, Alabama, Oklahoma, Texas. Ole Miss, Alabama, Oklahoma.
Figure out what you're going to be in that first months of the season, the August and September, because when October gets around, you better be well aware of what you are.
And think about it. And look, September, you get Old Dominion, and we'll talk more about them as time goes on.
Sure.
We've been talking a ton about that Kentucky game in Lexington. You got LSU showing up, and they're trying to figure out some stuff at this point, too. And then you get Akron, which should be a win at Williams-Brice.
Right.
But you're right. October with Ole Miss, Alabama, Oklahoma, you need to have the offense figured out. All right, we'll get back in here as we continue lots of conversation about football. Let's switch it to baseball real quick. The transfer portal. What is going on with South Carolina baseball in the portal? Some very interesting additions from the lower level / JUCOs that maybe we should put an eye on for the upcoming season. That's coming up next. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head till 3 on the game. We've been talking about, of course, it's official. Well, we know, but Oklahoma and Texas coming into the SEC. Of course, if you're Oklahoma, you're like, wow, the big celebration was in Austin. The parade was in Austin. What about us in Oklahoma?
Guys, we're here too.
Yeah, and we've been better than them forever. Matter of fact, we've been their daddy for how long?
Got them last year.
And ready? Yeah, but they don't make as much. You don't make as much money as them. So that's going on. We talked some Nick Gieman-Worry, who was at the Palmetto autograph event. We're going to get back to some of Nick's comments. Nick thinks the South Carolina defense could be historical this year. Matter of fact, he put his name on it.
Yes, it did. Stamped it.
Yes, he stamped it.
Historical, which I asked Wes and Chris, if we're talking history, what defenses are they having to beat? And really, when you look at those defenses from 11 to 13, all within the top 3 in the SEC in scoring defense, obviously those are the Clowney years, which were pretty good across the board. Melvin Ingram, tons of guys.
Swearinger,
that ended up playing at the next level. So that's, if we're talking history, that's the bar you're having to beat, which that's lofty expectations, but we'll see what happens.
And no one on this team, I mean, Dylan Stewart's a freshman. And look, anyone who experienced the Clowney years here knows that, yeah, Dylan Stewart had hype, but it wasn't Clowney hype.
No.
So Stewart's got a ton of potential, obviously. But those teams had NFL players.
Yes.
So that's what you're, like you said, that's what you're putting the bar up on if you're going to be historical.
Which, even if you don't get to that level, you can still be really good.
How about if you get close to it?
If you get anywhere in the realm,
right,
then you've done something good.
Yes. So, and I think this defense has a potential to be really good. So we've talked about that. Now we're going to swing real quick over at the baseball transfer portal. Just get you kind of caught up a little bit. Right now, if you look at the losses in the portal, and by the way, give props to Monty Lee and that staff. They held on to pretty much everybody they need to hold on to. Obviously, Cole Messina most likely is going to go and start his pro career.
Yeah.
But you held on to pretty much almost everybody you wanted to hold on to.
The most significant guy, if you can even say that left in the portal was Carson Hornung. He was a guy that did formally start, but lost his starting spot early on in the season. So even at that point, not really a factor when it came down to it at the end of the season. So, yeah. All these guys that have left in the portal fall into that healthy transfer category that we talk about a lot.
Right, and then you look at who's coming in, and as I was going through this here in the last couple of days, some of the guys coming in that have interesting numbers, again, transitioning from the JUCO ranks to the lower level ranks to the SEC is a big jump, but these guys like a Caden Gaskin who was hitting over 400 in JUCO, right? That's an interesting player, an infielder. Then you look at someone who's, coming in from lower level at the West Coast at St. Mary's, Dalton Mayshore, who put up really nice numbers, hit like 340, 14 homers, stole 11 bags. Now, this is a name I'll probably mess up. Another one, this is from Kansas City Community College, Jace Woida, for lack of a better. I deep dove on YouTube to try to get it.
I will trust your pronunciation on that.
I
can't give you a better one.
Again, here's a guy hitting over 400 with 23 homers in JUCO.
Right.
As a third baseman. Another one here. Now, Brandon Stone, right-handed pitcher, comes from Johnson County Community College and ranks as the top JUCO pitcher according to Dream Big Athletics. 6'6", 220. 18 starts, struck out 113, only walked 19, 3.28 ERA. And if you're into one-loss record, because I really hardly pay attention to it anymore, 14-1. So that's like, whew. All right, then State College of Florida pitcher Brandon Clark. He's a lefty. His numbers, 4.36 ERA, but in 74 and a third innings, Tyler, he struck out 107 hitters.
Pretty solid.
So, I mean, that's the kind of stuff you look at. There was no, yeah. All right, Charlie Meglio from Campbell. All rookie team as a freshman in the CAA. The slash was 275, 399 on base, 475 slugging. An infielder. Played some third, played some short. That's another interesting name. And the one guy from a power league was Wyatt Evans from Tennessee, who pitched really well as a freshman and hasn't pitched since he was his freshman year. He's interesting as well.
You also got Jarvis Evans from Georgia, too.
Another guy whose numbers are kind of inflated. He kind of had control issues, but if you can harness him, But there's some interesting names. You don't go wow because again, I won't lie to you. I'm not watching a ton of JUCO baseball or St. Mary's baseball or Campbell baseball, but just looking at the numbers and some of the metrics. Some of these guys are interesting, so we'll see where it
Yeah,
goes.
a lot of upside potential with these guys in addition to the guys that you have coming back that should be obviously good contributors as well. So, I mean, this should be another good team that obviously we want to see ascend to that great level next year.
And again, it's all about development. It's all about how they're going to play and the style they're going to play, how they're going to pitch, all those things with the new coaching staff. By the way, if you take a step back and look at this is a hellacious coaching staff.
Yeah.
A head coach who has gotten 2 different teams to Omaha. All 3 assistant coaches, by the way, have been to Omaha.
Mm-hmm.
The entire coaching staff knows their way around Omaha. So, a little bit, throw that out, just get you caught up on the transfer portal of South Carolina regarding baseball. All right, back to college football. Oklahoma, Texas are in. Texas. It's like Oklahoma doesn't exist. Quinn Ewers. And good. Look, give the Longhorns their props last year. Double-digit win season, got the college football playoff, got down big to Washington, and they were a play away from a huge, historic comeback against UW and would have played Michigan for the national championship. But they fell short against the Huskies, did make the college football playoff. First time they've been in that kind of conversation postseason-wise since,
And
Colt McCoy was the quarterback.
Don't forget, they went into Tuscaloosa and won a season ago as well.
So, very good year for Texas. Take nothing away from them. But how many years in a row have they been this good?
1.
Yeah. So they got to stack them, fellas. So here's Quinn Ewers. Now, Ewers is being interviewed. Do we know who was interviewing him?
I don't. It was just kind of a media scrum.
And someone asked the question about being everybody's biggest game. And it was almost to be fair to Quinn Ewers, it was a very leading type of question the way it was asked. And then Quinn Ewers gave this answer.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely a different level. I've always wanted to play in the SEC, so I know we're all excited to be a part of a conference like that. Like you said, we're everybody's biggest game, and we do understand that.
He didn't come up with that on his own.
No, a reporter kind of let it in the question. Like, how's it feel to be everybody's biggest game in the SEC? Well, you're not. Not to be mean.
But, like, what do you expect him to say, right? Like, I think we might be the second best game for most people.
If it would have been me, I thought about this.
Okay.
I would have said this. Well, I'm not really going to go down that road. I'm just happy to be in the SEC, and let's see how we can compete.
Yeah, I'm not mad at him for the answer.
No,
like, he
I'm not
answered it
either.
quickly, and again, what was based on what the direction he was being pointed
But
in.
this is the whole thing about Texas. Again, the arrogance of Texas and the way the media looks at Texas. You're coming into the best league in college football. Now, again, if you're Steve Sarkisian, you should be saying, we can go beat anybody's tail in the SEC. We're in the college football playoff last year. We got a ton of great players. Let's go smack some folks in the Southeastern Conference and say, hey, we're here. What's up?
Sure.
That's what you say to your players. That's what you say around your facility. And that's what you say in your locker room. That's what you say in your weight room. That's what you say when you're doing plyometrics, whatever. But it's that outward arrogance of a program that has done jack except last year forever.
Right.
And now you think you're going to walk into the best conference in college football and be everybody's biggest game. You ever heard of Alabama, dude? You ever heard of Georgia? Hell, you ever heard of LSU?
Yeah. So I quickly ran down their schedule, the 8 games they're going to play this year in the SEC. Mississippi State, no. Egg Bowl's bigger. Oklahoma, of course, biggest rivalry there. Georgia, toss up between them and Bama. You can make an argument on both sides. I think without Nick Saban, maybe the Texas game's a little bit bigger, especially considering that Georgia's going to go to Austin. Vanderbilt, sure, and Texas is going to take over Nashville, by the way. Florida, no. Georgia and FSU are bigger. Arkansas, make a fair case there. Also, it's an old rivalry kind of getting resparked there from the Southwest Conference. Kentucky, no. Georgia in week number 3. And then A&M, of course, that's going to be their biggest game of the entire year. So roughly half the schedule you could probably say yes for.
I think a lot of it's old school. I mean, Vanderbilt, for the 26 people who go, it's still playing Tennessee.
Sure.
Or playing some historic SEC teams more than Texas is. Wow, Texas has never been here before. Woo, that's cool. But I don't think how lathered up does Vanderbilt get in general? But I don't think everybody's going, ooh, the big bad Longhorns are coming to Nashville. I think it's more like, wow, those guys have never been here before.
I was going to say, there's also the element of like they know they're not going to win that game, so how hyped can you really get for it?
So,
Like, hey, maybe we can stay within 3 touchdowns this time.
Well, you know, Arkansas, yes. Texas A&M, sure. Like you said, maybe the Georgia game, depending on your perspective of it. But they're not everybody's big game.
No.
But, hey, Texas, you be Texas. All right, Firehouse Sub Text the Hour coming up at 803-404-6100 halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, till 3 on the game. Time for our Firehouse Subtext of the hour. 803-404-6100. What do you got there, Tylerhead?
Yeah, our guy Justin Hall weighs in and says Oklahoma finishes with a better conference record in 2024 than Texas. So the overlooked one ends up coming out better in his opinion.
Would you be shocked?
I wouldn't be shocked.
No, I wouldn't either. Justin, by the way, excellent text.
Yeah, appreciate it, Justin. There's a lot of questions with Oklahoma this year. They're obviously replacing Dylan Gabriel with Jackson Arnold. And again, five-star kid, a lot of hype and all that kind of stuff. He didn't blow the world away with his performance in the Alamo Bowl, but, we're going to see him learn and progress as the season goes along, kind of revamping their offensive line, returning a lot of guys on defense. They did take a step forward in defense in year number 2 under Brent Venables, so they could certainly come in and make an impact right away, but again, still a lot of unknowns with that team.
Here's what we don't know. Now, if this were a Lincoln Riley team or a Bob Stoops team, we go, it's going to be fine. Riley's a quarterback whisperer. Jackson Arnold will be just fine.
Sure.
Everything's going to be okay. Well, maybe if Lincoln Riley's still there, maybe Dylan Gabriel stays. I mean, who knows? But, the offense will be explosive. The defense will be just good enough to get us where we need to get, that's, winning games 100-79.
I was going to say, with Bob Stoops, I think we would say the defense would be okay.
Would be better.
With Lincoln Riley, I think we know, right. Defense is going to be god-awful.
It'll be just, they'll get that 1 or 2 stops a game so they win, right?
Sure.
That's what Oklahoma
62
was.
to 60.
Exactly. We have more confidence in a Lincoln Riley or a Bob Stoops because the track record tells us, the offensive line might have a question mark. The quarterback might be a question mark. But it's Oklahoma, right?
Yeah.
It's bleeping Oklahoma, so we would believe in it. But
it is.
We don't believe in Brent Venables.
Because we don't know.
Yet.
I mean, this is just his third full-time year as a head coach. And yes, give him credit. They made a sizable jump from year 1 to year 2. Numbers got better. Wins obviously went from 6 up until 10. But now you're entering a brand-new conference. And yes, Brent Venables has played tons of SEC teams in his time as a defensive coordinator at Clemson, obviously South Carolina every single year, multiple run-ins they had with Alabama, playing Georgia, the whole 9 yards. So he's familiar with the play style that you're going to have to deal with in the SEC, but it's a different animal when you're taking it on week in and week out, week after week after week. Is he going to be up to the task for that?
Well, the thing about, with Venables is that first year was so bad. Mm-hmm. Look, 6 and 7 is bad at Oklahoma.
Sure.
As a matter of fact, it's catastrophic. Year 2, much better when you're sitting around at, 10 and 3. And how much do we count a bowl game for anything? Because remember,
we don't.
Dylan Gabriel wasn't the starting quarterback. Everybody's going through. So I'm just going to say 10 and 2.
Sure.
But, again, when you're comparing Lincoln Riley, Bob Stoops, go back to the Barry Switzers, the Chuck Fairbanks, the Bud Wilkinsons, when Oklahoma is a high-level program. Last year, you start 7-0, right?
Right.
You beat Texas in the state fair game. You roll into Kansas, you lose 38-33. Then you lose Bedlam, which is unacceptable.
Yes.
You lost 2 close games that in the past, Oklahoma wins one of those games.
Sure.
And that wiped you out of the conversation for the college football playoff.
Right.
Because you had a win over Texas in your pocket. You had the tiebreaker in your pocket, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you lost. Yes, Kansas is a good program now. Yes, Oklahoma State was ranked at the time. Those games were both on the road. But once again, you're bleeping Oklahoma, dude. You don't lose those 2 games in a row. Does that sound unfair? Not when you're saying who you are.
Sure.
Look, it's all about the level of whatever. And Oklahoma is on the level of a program that's been for the last, 70 years, Tyler?
Mm-hmm.
That in that type of season, you're 10 and 2 going to a bowl game. But you know what? You're Oklahoma. You don't lose both those games in a row on the road.
Yeah. And to be fair, I don't think Oklahoma ever saw themselves as the type of place that a coach would want to leave, especially a guy like Lincoln Riley that had it made out there. But he went out to L.A., left him behind. Obviously, a bunch of guys transferred out, including Caleb Williams. So the cover was pretty bare when Brent Venables got there.
And I think that's why people are being – plus, look, Oklahoma, that fan base expects excellence, but they aren't A1 kooky, right? They're not level 1 crazy. Like, I'm sure there's a part of the fan base wanting to fire Venables right after year 1.
Sure.
But again, you have one of the best ADs in the country in Joe Castiglione, and they were going to be patient. And so, but I'll say this, Venables in year 3, Oklahoma's over-under, I think, in Vegas is 7.5. They better hit the over.
Right.
As a matter of fact, a lot of smart gambling people think that's one of the best picks, is taking the over on the Sooners.
Yeah.
But there's a certain excellence expected at Oklahoma. And Venables this year, I mean, you look at the schedule, there's some landmines in there. It's tougher than Texas's, but if you're Oklahoma, you better hit the over on the 7.5, Coach. Just saying. All right, we're going to pop back in here. Football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. That's all coming up with Terry Ford and Tyler Head here on The Game in Columbia, Florence, Myrtle Beach. So you want to redo stuff with your home. Maybe a new tub, a new shower, maybe new fixtures, plumbing. How about stainless steel appliances all through the kitchen? But you need a plan. You got an idea, but you need a plan. Go to the folks with over 70 years of combined experience. The folks at the Nest. In the Vista, 1331 Gadsden. The best thing to do is to call 803-978-2025 and say, hey, look, I got this vision for my home. I want to do some things. I want to shake it up a bit. And the folks at the Nest will talk to you about it on the phone, get a basic idea of what you're looking for. You come in, sit down, do a consultation, tell them your vision. They'll walk you around the beautiful, vast showroom, show you all your options, and they'll sit down and make your vision and dream come true. 803-978-2025. Go with the experts at the Nest in the Vista. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head here on the game as we roll to 3 o'clock. And again, appreciate you if you are watching the old video stream. And it's funny, Tyler, because people will watch it like, I find this interesting about the video stream. As soon as I can unknot my earbuds. How does that happen in like 5 minutes? With our live stream, it's funny. Like, you see a certain amount of people watching it live.
Sure.
But then you go back like later the next day and see how many more people watched it after it was over.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, okay.
Yeah. You know, we get that not everybody can lock in for the full 3 hours. So, you know, if you have if we have our reoccurring segments, football, greatest day in the history of the world, hey, I didn't get to listen at 2:30 yesterday, so let me go back and see what I missed in the greatest day of the history of the world, which we have some interesting events today, by the way, which we'll get to.
Yes, we do.
So if you want to go back and listen, which that's the great thing, because once it's streamed live, it gets uploaded to the YouTube channel that you can go back and skim through it and find any segment that you want.
Yep, exactly. So it is funny when you see who's watching at the moment, and then you go back like the next day and go, wow, look at all those folks who piled in later. So we appreciate it. Obviously, it's powered by Integrated Media and sponsored by our friends at Shepherd's Glass Game TV. You go to YouTube, it's at the Game TV Radio. By the way, speaking of great moments in history, this might not be part of the greatest day in the history of the world, but we are going to run you a great moment in ACC history.
We are. And we're also going to ask the question, what moments now belong to new conferences?
Very interesting question we'll get to later. All right, football in the 1 o'clock hour. Again, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Let's get back. Nick Emenwari at the Palmetto Autograph event. Let's go to cut one, Tyler. My first football season was Nick's freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take it back. I came in at the very end of Beamer's first season. I got here at the very end of Beamer's first season.
Okay.
I was here for the Clemson week. I got here right at the end of Clemson week, and I was here for the Mayo Bowl and stuff like that. But my first full year was Nick's freshman year. Nick will now be a grizzled veteran junior. And here's Nick Emenwari talking about being a veteran on this year's Gamecock defense.
I'm coming in, man. I probably say, like, when I first came in, I never really saw myself being a vet, but now, like, you're a vet, so it's like you got younger dudes you got to take care of, like Bakari Swain, still trying to get Jalen Kilgore, like, on the same little path to have a strong sophomore season. So it's just like being a vet, I take pride in it, you know, a little smarter, a little older, so it's fun. Can't wait for the.
Well, you think about when Nick first came in, again, he kind of got thrown into it because of injuries right away. And for a freshman, he played really well, especially, in the run game, laying the wood to guys. Nick was all freshman in a lot of ways, SEC all-freshman team. Nationwide, he got some love on certain all-freshman teams. Even if it wasn't first team, it was like second, third team, whatever. Then last year, Nick coming in again, looked at, all right, you got all the experience as a freshman. Now you're ready to run your sophomore year. You're ahead of the curve. And, again, Nick, when it comes to playing in the run game, flying around in the secondary, making tackles, making plays on ball carriers, and in certain types of coverages, Nick was fine. But when Nick was asked to go man up in the slot, there were struggles. That wasn't his forte. It wasn't his strength. And you saw it. I mean, you saw it in the Florida game. You saw the struggles in the slot for different guys throughout the season in coverage. It wasn't just Nick. And then when the coverage schemes changed in November, along with going to that 3-3-5, this defense went up to another level. And I look back on that last year, and I give Clayton White credit for changing. Because sometimes defensive coordinators or offensive coordinators won't change, man. This is who I am. This is what I do. This is what I believe in. And look, you can say they're stubborn, and yeah, they are, because they believe what their philosophy is going to work. A lot of guys are going to stick with it because they know it's going to work. I know this is going to work. We just got to keep coaching it and keep practicing it and keep developing it, and it's going to work. But at some point, you got to realize it's not working. Your personnel don't fit your defense. And Shane talked about sitting down with Clayton. and saying, look, Clayton, it's just we got to figure out something. And to Clayton's credit, I mean, I don't know how much pushback Clayton might not have given any. He might have said, you know what, Coach, you're right. I appreciate you. You're right. Let me look at this from another angle. Because sometimes you're so deep into it that you need someone else who has kind of got the bigger picture view to pull you aside. But however it went down, I give them credit. I give Clayton credit. I give Shane credit for talking to Clayton White. We got to change this up. Because there was no defensive back last year who could cover the slot man-to-man. It just wasn't, you just couldn't do it. That wasn't their skill set, whether it was Kilgore, Smith, Amenwari. That's not who they were at this point in their development as football players. And one day, they all might be much better in coverage. Maybe this year they'll be. I don't know. But last year, none of them were ready to take on that task. And it showed. And then the defense got tweaked in the back end and in the 3-3-5 overall, and you saw a much better D in November. And we'll see how the slot is handled this year. And we'll see the coverage schemes and matchups coming into this year. Because you still, look, 2 years ago, remember, South Carolina had 3 corners, and one would drop down in the slot. Remember the Tennessee win, Cam Smith dropped down in the slot against Jalen Hyatt. And again, Hyatt caught, 6 balls, but for only 65 yards and really no big plays. You didn't have that third corner that could become the slot corner last year. You were using safeties and nickels. And it wasn't there. So we'll see how that's all handled coming up in 2024. Or does a guy like Vakari Swain get more run at the nickel if he doesn't win the corner gig? If Judge Collier beats him out for the boundary corner, do you maybe move Vakari Swain into maybe play some slot corner, some nickel? I don't know. But that was a point, that was a problem last year until November when, again, after Shane and Clayton talked, Clayton did some tweaking in the back end of the defense. So we'll see. But Nick Amenwari, we went over it. Phil Steele has him the 11th rated strong safety, draftable strong safety in the country. And if Nick has a year the way Nick's capable of having a year, because, the guy's a physical freak. He's big, he's fast, he's ornery. He could play himself into a decent draft position for the upcoming NFL draft in 2025. We'll see. But all the physical skill there is with Nick Amenwari. And just the development in year 3, especially in the coverage piece, that'll go a long way to tell you where Nick is regarding NFL folks by the end of his junior year. But Nick Amenwari talking at the Palmetto Autograph event, discussing the defense, and he put his name on it. Defense is going to be crazy this year. And we went over it, Tyler and I. That defense, there's potential there to be really good. There's no doubt. Depth and experience up front with the defensive line, depth and experience in the linebacker room, only one new starter coming in the secondary. It's a defense that looks like on paper could be really good. Let's grab one more cut, Tyler, from Nick. The things he's looking to improve on. Let's get cut 3 from Nick Amenwari.
My versatility on all 3 levels, probably get a little bit more sacks. Just be versatile all over the field, a little bit more coverage, just showing the NFL what I can do and stuff. That's probably the biggest thing I've been working on.
And Nick brought that up, maybe being able to be a better blitzer. And again, Nick's got all of that skill set. He's fast, he's big. You could see Nick in certain blitz packages be scary.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you look at his numbers last year and how they utilized him on defense, he played everywhere. They brought him up to the line in some situations, played him in the box, played him in coverage, and it was really kind of an even split in a lot of ways compared to what he did in year number 1. So he has that athleticism, obviously he has good size, good versatility to be able to do a number of things. And we were talking about this the other day. Phil still has him listed as the 11th free safety in terms of draft eligible one. So when you balance that out with strong safety. So when you balance that out with free safeties, he's about 20th on the list of safeties eligible for this year's NFL draft, which that was as many that got drafted this past year. So he's probably around a 7th-round projection at this point in time. So if he wants to improve on that, he does need to get better in some of those areas to improve his versatility and his stock for NFL teams.
I think coverage is the big thing.
Sure.
I really do with Nick. I think it's just, can he improve in coverage? And if he can, to go with his skill set of playing the run and knocking the snot out of people, that'll help his draft position.
That was a big problem for this defense a year ago. I mean, how many guys rotated through that nickel corner spot where it's like, all right, I mean, Maury is the beginning of the season. You had several guys like, okay, you're just having trouble finding someone that can, stick in coverage. It ended up being Jelon Kilgore towards the end of the season, but how much have these guys stepped up this offseason and maybe getting better in that? And is that a spot that Nicky Maury could play a little bit more this season? We'll see.
And like we talked about here just a few minutes ago, they had to change their coverage schemes in November because they had to finally had to go like this and throw up their hands and go, right now, we don't have a guy who can consistently cover the slot. We just don't. And we'll see if they have one. Again, the name that I think we have to keep in the back of our heads is Vakari Swain. Now, if Swain loses the boundary corner job to Judge Collier, how do you feel about sliding Swain in to get some reps at that nickel in obvious passing situations?
Right.
So we'll see where that goes. But Nick Emenwari, to improve his draft stock, the coverage has to get better.
Right.
And that'll be the thing. I'll throw something else at you. Emenwari wouldn't be the first safety to get drafted to get converted to a linebacker. You had a guy with the Falcons that had that happen, Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Started off as a safety and ended up sliding down to linebacker later in his career.
Right.
So if Nick does continue to struggle in coverage, his draft stock will probably be third-day guy, but maybe before it's over with, he evolves into a dude that goes and moves into play linebacker.
Right.
So we'll see. All right, but that's Nick Emenwari again from the Palmetto Autographed event. We'll get more of that between now and 3 o'clock as well. All right, football in the 1 o'clock hour. We've talked all about Texas till we're pretty much tired of talking about Texas. Let's get to some comments from Eric Bailey of the Tulsa World about Oklahoma. The Sooners, by the way, I looked at that schedule. Woo! So let's get Eric Bailey talking about the Oklahoma Sooners. That was on Feinbaum?
That was on Feinbaum.
All right, we'll hear that next here on the Halftime Show with Terry Ford and Tyler Head up until 3 o'clock on The Game. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head, till 3 on the game. Football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. We've heard a lot about Texas. We'll get to Kurt Bowles. Kurt Bowles, by the way, has been covering Texas football forever.
51 years, I believe, is what he told Paul the other day.
Crazy. So we'll hear some stuff from Kirk Bowles of the Houston Chronicle on Feinbaum. Right now, the Eric Bailey, Tulsa World, also on with Paul, talking about a variety of things. We'll start off with Eric Bailey, Cut 11, Tyler, talking about how Oklahoma knows they'll have to find their place in the SEC moving from the Big 12.
Exactly. I think this is something that Oklahoma is excited about. They understand that they're going to have to be ready when they get there, and I think they're going to have to really try to find their place in the SEC. But I think that's exciting for both the fan base, for the school, all the way to the administration. It's just a leap forward that everyone is excited to take. They had a good run at the Big 12. They knew their place in the Big 12. Now this is uncharted territory. So we'll see what happens going forward for this football program, for all their athletic department.
Now, again, the Oklahoma was in the old Big 8. They were obviously in the Big 12 forever. And now they're moving into the best conference in college football. And look, real quick, Oklahoma's schedule, we've gone over it. You got Temple, Houston, Tulane. Now, Tulane's no gimme.
No, they're not.
Tulane.
That's a good Group of 5 program, one that we might, see represent the Group of 5 in the playoff this year for all we know.
Yeah, and, Houston's trying to retool, but Houston's been good in the past as well. So, I mean, you should be 3-0, but there's no guarantee you're going to be 3-0 here.
No, not at all.
You don't play well. Tulane, I know Tulane's starting a new quarterback now, and they have a new head coach.
Yep.
But there's still remnants of a really good football team there.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Then you have Tennessee. Again, that game's in Norman. Tennessee's got some question marks like you, but a lot of people like Tennessee more than they like Oklahoma these days.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, that comment there alone kind of, I think, shows you how Oklahoma and its fan base are approaching the SEC compared to how Texas is. They're not beating their chest saying, man, we're going to come in here, we're going to dominate and all this kind of stuff. I think they're taking a little bit more of a slow step approach. Not that they don't hope that they can come in here and make an impact right away, but I don't think they're coming in here and planting their flag in the ground necessarily like it seems like Texas is.
What's the difference in fan bases?
Sure.
The difference in Oklahoma as a football program has been much better than Texas over the years. But they don't puff their chest. Oklahoma just kind of, we're just going to walk in and we're going to very humbly beat you.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what we do. Texas pumps their chest, jumps up and down, plants their flag, and usually leaves their tail between their legs with upside down horns.
Right.
So Oklahoma, once you have the Tennessee game in Norman, then you go to Auburn. Again, that's not a gimme either this year. A lot of people think Auburn could be sneaky good.
Well, they might have to learn about the voodoo of the plains.
They might
pretty
learn
quickly there.
Then you have the state fair game against Texas. And, of course, Texas coming off a college football playoff trip.
Mm-hmm.
Then you will come to Columbia, South Carolina.
Also not easy.
Nah, playing at Williams-Brice, no, will not be easy. Then you go to Ole Miss.
So, no, Carolina's going to.
No, it says, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
they're
looking at
going
this
to
like a
Norman.
South Carolina schedule.
Yeah.
South Carolina's going to Norman. Again, we'll see where that goes. But playing in Norman, not an easy draw for the Gamecocks. At Ole Miss, ooh. Then you get Maine. Don't screw with the Black Bears.
Got to be careful.
And then you go to Missouri, home to Bama, go to LSU. This is a difficult schedule.
1,000%.
Make no mistake. Now, can they hit the over 7.5? Sure they can. They're Oklahoma.
Yeah.
If the offensive line is right and Jackson Arnold is what everybody thinks he's going to be, you got a new OC, obviously, who's got, experience as a head coach at North Texas. And if the defense can continue to improve, yeah, you got yourself over 7.5 wins, but it's not going to be easy.
No, not at all.
This is not an easy schedule. So that's, I think, too, where Oklahoma's coming in here with a more humble mindset. Knowing that there are some question marks. It's year 3 in the Venables era. And I think some people in that fan base really don't know what to make of Venables yet, which is fair.
Well, a lot of people in that fan base weren't thrilled by the contract extension that he got.
Let's get to that because I think I heard Eric Bailey, matter of fact, on the college football show on SiriusXM's College Football Channel, talking about why Venables got extended. I think this was Eric Bailey. I'm not sure. I can't remember. I was half asleep driving down the road. But here is Eric Bailey from the Tulsa World talking about why Brent Venables got a contract extension.
Oklahoma generally has been giving extensions to their football coaches over the years. I wasn't really surprised that it happened again this year. It's typically what happens. I think it was more of a surprise, the blowback when the news came out. I don't think it was something that really caught me off guard. It was something that Joe Castiglione has always done as an athletic director at Oklahoma. He has always given his football coaches extensions. I think it's just a way of letting Brent Venables know that they support him. I think it helps the recruiting base knowing that this coach is going to be in place for years to come. I think that's very important for both Oklahoma and the recruiting going forward.
Which makes, I get it. I do. And I understand, though, the fan base going, what has this guy done to deserve a contract extension? Especially in comparison to a Riley or a Stoops or any of the other great Oklahoma coaches who have posted up year after year after year of excellence.
And here's a quote from Joe Castiglione that he gave in reference to that contract extension, where he kind of cites Venables' ability to adapt to the new world of college athletics, transfer portal, NIL, all that kind of stuff. He said, it's a big part of the extension. He is all about the importance of identifying the players that we need to be successful in the world in which we're competing, the culture that they're coming into, the relationships that are built, having strong leaders that not only can help team overall, but in the locker room. And I think that's an interesting way to look at this because, again, he coached under Dabo Swinney forever, and who's very resistant to the new age of college football with the portal, with NIL, Dabo Swinney. So it's almost kind of like there was this wait and see, like, okay, how's this guy going to juggle that considering the fact he didn't really do that when he was at Clemson? He obviously come in, I mentioned a moment ago, they're rebuilding their offensive line mainly through guys with the transfer portal. They've got good NIL resources out there in Norman. It seems like Brent Venables has no problem leaning into that. So it feels like Constiglio sees that and says, okay, we have the kind of guy that's not afraid to embrace the new age of college football, and we should be able to have success going forward. Let's go ahead and lock him in for 6 more years.
And look, there's 2 things here. One, we've lost patience for everything.
Of course.
We got no patience. And again, Venables, I said this, Oklahoma, like, you don't lose those 2 games in a row if you're Oklahoma last year.
No.
I don't care if they're on the road or not. Typically, Oklahoma wins one of those games.
Sure.
And both games were close. So Venables has done nothing in the mind or the thought or the vision of a Sooner fan to go, what are we doing here?
Right.
But look, let's you go from 6-7 to 10-3 if you want to count the bowl game. That's a nice improvement.
Yes.
It is. Now, is year 3 important for Brent Venables? Yes. You want to stack another double-digit win season, or at least get the 9 wins in the new SEC or whatever. Because if you go 7-6, let's say, yeah, Joe Castiglione is a very patient man and a good AD. You're not going to get fired. I'll tell you something. Year 4 better be much, much better.
Yes.
Just saying. So, but again, Castiglione sees stuff that we don't see or the fans don't see or anyone. He's around of Brent Venables on almost a daily basis.
Right.
And he likes what he sees. And again, this is a very good athletic director. Very good. One of the best in the country. So he might see the things that he knows are going to pop for years to come with Brent Venables. And if not, guess what? You get rid of him and you get everybody together and go, okay, everybody break out your ATM card. Let's buy the dude out and move on.
Right.
Because that's not going to stop anybody.
No, not at all.
So Brent Venables probably has 4 years at Oklahoma to show that he is a guy that's going to keep the legacy and lineage of Sooner football going.
Yeah, I think it's pretty safe.
So, all right. Football in the 1 o'clock hour. Sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Everybody's commenting and talking during talking season. Next, Andy Staples talking from On 3. A variety of things. Andy talking about the college football playoff and the teams in the SEC. We'll get to that next. Who can make the college football playoff out of the Southeastern Conference? Andy Staples answers that next on the halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, football in the 1 o'clock hour. Sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Oh, we're talking football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. We've been hearing a lot of people giving a lot of thoughts about a lot of things. As Oklahoma and Texas officially are in the SEC, you know it's real when you go to ESPN and you click conferences. Oklahoma and Texas are now in the SEC.
That is the funny thing. This changed really, I guess, back in the springtime, but the website FBSschedules.com, which is my kind of go-to resource, they had flipped it a while back. So it went from having 14 teams, 16 teams, and I've had to get used to looking for Texas and Oklahoma in that list, as well as all the other new teams going to different conferences for this year as well.
And we're going to get to a little bit of that. It's like we got a lot of teams moving in conferences, and we're going to get to an interesting thought from Andy Staples here in a minute. They'll kind of push that conversation. First, here's Andy Staples from On 3. He was on with Paul Feinbaum. And we'll grab cut 14, Tyler. SEC teams that can make the college football playoff. Here's Andy.
Well, there's quite a bit. If you're going by, like, I'll go by the post-spring ranking I did. You would have Georgia in there. You'd have Texas in there. You'd have Alabama in there. You would also have Ole Miss and Tennessee in there. I've had 5 that would have made it. But I think Oklahoma, LSU, and Missouri are all thinking, whoa, we're leaving us out. Because I think they're going to have a shot to make it too. So if you can win 10 games in the regular season in this league, you're going to be in. But we talked about those schedule draws. If you got one of those particularly brutal schedule draws and some of the ones you won were the quote-unquote right ones, I think there's a chance you could also make it into 9-3 depending on what everybody else in the other leagues does.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, the SEC itself being the SEC, we said this last year. If Florida State's undefeated, I don't care if they lost 7 quarterbacks.
Sure.
If Florida State is undefeated and wins the SEC championship game, their punter could be the quarterback, and they're in the college football playoff.
Of course.
Just if Florida State was in the wrong league, which is why Florida State wants to get out of the ACC.
Which, by the way, there's a lot of smoke that could be happening very soon.
We'll
Keep
see.
your eye out.
We'll see what ends up going down if Florida State does get out.
Yes,
I'm very interested.
I'm intrigued, but no, he brings up a really good point. And look, whoever the 2 teams that play in Atlanta are, they're going to be in the playoff.
Yeah,
just one's going to get a bye, and the other one's going to be playing in the first round.
Look, this is conservative. Obviously, I think 3 SEC teams get in. Now, if this thing gets kooky, could it be 4? Absolutely. But people will go 5 and 6 and slower roll. We've never seen more. If you go through year after year for the last 10, 12 years or whatever, and if you put in a 12-team playoff criteria, you would see consistently 3 SEC teams getting in.
Sure.
And that, I feel like that's what will happen. But if this thing goes off the rails and a 9-3 team, like Andy says, a 9-3 team would get in from the SEC, it wouldn't surprise me if the other leagues have, like the Big 12 looks like a ton of parity, for an example.
It does, and a ton of parity without without as much strength as some of these other conferences. So let's say Utah goes in there, wins the Big 12, and I don't know, the Oklahoma State is the second best team at 9-3. Like, all right, you're getting 1 team in, and that's probably it. So that would open up the door for more Big 10 or SEC teams. And again, if the Big 10 cannibalizes itself or something like that, then maybe you're opening the door as well. So there's so many variables. It's tough to say, yes, I think the SEC is going to get 5 teams in or something like that. Could it happen? Sure. But it's going to take a lot of other moving pieces to happen for that to fall in place.
Because, we look at the ACC, a lot of people are picking Miami to win the ACC.
Could happen, sure.
Because, of the talent they have and what they've done in the portal and recruiting the last few years under Cristobal and blah, 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 blah. People think Florida State will fall back a little bit because, again, their quarterbacks, look, DJU, Uiagalelei is not who he's replacing.
Right.
He's just not. And so people think Florida State might not be quite as good. Plus, they've lost a lot of guys that were part of that team last year because they NFL or whatever the case. Who knows what kind of offense Clemson's going to be bringing to the table. That's a big issue up the road here. So maybe, let's say the ACC gets 1, maybe 2. So if you've got the Big 12 giving you 1, the ACC giving you 2, or you got the Group of 5 giving you 1, where's the rest of them coming from?
The Big 10 and the SEC.
There you go.
Let's be conservative here and go a split down the middle. So that'd be 4 spots left. So 2 and 2.
I mean, you could see.
Maybe.
You can see the SEC and the Big 10 doing okay. If you get 1 Group of 5, 2 ACC, now you got 3. You throw a Big 12 in, you got 4. Now you got 8 left.
Yeah.
And let's just say the Big 12 gets 2, you still got 7 left.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Sure.
So we'll see where it goes.
Which that goes into the biggest unknown of this entire year is we don't know how the committee views things from a 12-team playoff perspective, because I've held the long belief that, especially in those last couple weeks of the season, once you get past the teams that were in the running for the top 4, they didn't care about the ratings. Do you think they really spent a lot of time in the final week deciding between 10th and 11th? No. They're just like, all right, we're going to throw a number out there because it doesn't matter at that point in time.
Right.
Now that they actually have to care about 1 through 11 and then whatever the group of 5 team is after that, it's going to be interesting to see how they decide these rankings, because you can go over all these with a fine-tooth comb now.
Remember what they did to Georgia after they lost the SEC championship game?
No, 6.
Who cares?
Yeah,
right?
no, that does not make sense.
Right. Andy Staples did have another interesting take when he was on with Paul Feinbaum. Cut 19, Tyler. Andy Staples on Utah possibly being the favorite in the Big 12.
Let's get to the other biggie. The other one that, if we're just saying, all right, who can get to the playoff? Who can win games in the playoff if they make it to the playoff? How about the team that won the Pac-12 2 of the last 3 years that the Pac-12 existed? The Utah Utes. Kyle Whittingham has done an incredible job with this program. They get Cam Rising back. Last season did not go as planned because Cam Rising got hurt in the Rose Bowl that ended the season before, and his knee injury was so serious that it really cost him the whole year. If Cam Rising is back and looks anything like he looked when he led Utah to 2 consecutive Pac-12 titles, this team's going to be really tough to deal with.
I get where Andy Staples is going. Utah might be the most underrated, really good program in America over the last 5-6 years.
Yes.
What Kyle Whittingham has done there has been phenomenal. And Cam Rising's part of it. He's been the starter there for 10, 12 years. He's getting his law degree and medical degree.
He should.
And the Big 12 is a lot of good teams, but there's not a team you look at as a great team. I mean, Arizona was really good last year. Jedd Fisch is gone. You look through it again. Where am I at here? Down the list. Kansas was good. Kansas State was good. Oklahoma State was good. And then you got some other teams that could be interesting. Like, could Iowa State be interesting if they could actually find an offense? Maybe. BYU in year 2, could they be interesting? What do you have? Look, there's one other team I want to find here. Remember, TCU 2 years ago played for the national championship.
They were. I think UCF's flying under a lot of people's radars. They could be really good.
They're bringing back a lot of offense.
And they brought in KJ Jefferson at quarterback.
Yes, so a lot of this is an interesting league.
It is the most wide open power league that there is.
Right.
And I think because what's been the knock on the Big 12 for so many years, I don't really play all that good of defense out there. What does Utah do better than a lot of teams in the country? They play really good smash mouth defense. They could come in there and take control of this league right from the jump.
And that's the thing, that Utah legitimately, they might be, out of all these teams switching leagues, the one that ends up being the most successful.
Sure.
Because their style is going to help them in their transition. But, we were talking about this off the air. A buddy of mine said this to me yesterday. He's a college football goober, and he's out in the Northwest. And he said, I love these people who think Oregon's just going to walk into the Big Ten and start tearing things up. And his quote was, yeah, you go to Columbus and win a couple years ago, then you come back to the Pac-12. The Pac-12 isn't known for their toughness. That's why I think Utah did so well in the Pac-12, is they came in and smacked you in the head.
Sure.
And a lot of Pac-12 teams went, stop. We just want to eat hummus and hug trees and score points. We don't want to, get physical. Well, look, the Big Ten, there's some teams allergic to scoring points in the Big Ten.
Sure.
But the one thing, and my buddy's quote was, week after week, you'll go up against a bunch of corn-fed farm boys who are just going to hit you for 4 quarters. Mm-hmm. Is Oregon ready for that for 3 months? Are they ready to take on the Wisconsins and the Penn States and the Ohio States and the Michigans and the Iowas? No, Iowa can't score if you gave them the ball on the 1 yard line and gave them 10 plays. But you know what they do?
They play defense.
They play defense, and they're physical.
Yep.
You're going up against that. And look, Dan Lanning, defensive background, Oregon defensively got better last year, but that's Pac-12. How are you going to deal with the physicality of the Big Ten? Now, to be fair, how's the Big Ten going to deal with your athleticism on offense? That's a fair, legit point.
Right.
Oregon might be winning a lot of, Oregon, you think, will be winning a lot of high-scoring games in the Pac-12. How does all this translate to the Big Ten? To my buddy's point is people think that Pac-12 version of Oregon is just going to travel to the Big Ten and start, rolling people.
Right.
Hold your spin. The same thing with Texas. There are a lot of people think Texas is going to walk into the SEC and be what they were last year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, their schedule is a lot easier than Oklahoma's, but playing the SEC gauntlet week after week after week after week, I'm going to go on a limb, Tyler, a little different than playing the Big 12 gauntlet week after week after week after week.
Yep.
So everybody's automatically thinking some of these teams are just going to hop into new leagues and just start, being like Ray Donovan, taking the bat out of the trunk and knocking the hell out of people. Slow down a little bit. We'll see. We'll see how they transition.
I will say, and I told you this earlier, the fact that you have Dan Lanning as your head coach, defensive-minded guy, and that defense took a huge jump in year number 2 under him out there in the Pac-12 this past year. Obviously, he was learned under Kirby at Georgia, like he's been in the Alabama system. He knows what playing physical defense looks like. So I'm not saying they're going to be the best defense in the Big Ten by any means, but I think you have somebody that understands how to get you there at least.
I just think playing against offenses and offensive lines in the Pac-12 is a whole different animal than going up against the Big Ten crew. Now, again, they don't score as much, but it's a much physical league than the Pac-12.
Right.
So we'll see. But I thought it was interesting my buddy brought that up because he's watched a lot of Oregon football. All right, we'll get back in here. Where are we at? Oh, it's time to get to Firehouse Sub Text the Hour at 803-404-6100. It's a halftime show with Terry Ford and Tyler Head. Football. But I might, if we have time, have a very interesting minor league baseball story that we'll throw at you. You like good, comfortable seats at the game, Tyler?
Sure.
Well, we might have found you the most comfortable seat possible at a minor league ballpark. That's coming up on the halftime show. Terry Ford and Tyler Head on the game. Yeah, I love the look. We have wonderful studios. They're pretty. They're state of the art. We got a lot of cool stuff. Got this awesome window. Got the game TV going here, streaming. I tell you what, the heating cooling system in this room. 1 minute it's a sauna, next minute it's a freezer.
The unfortunate part is we don't control this.
No, just kind of happens.
We the thermostat is behind a lockbox. I've gotten varying stories on why that is. Believe Bill may have finagled with it at some point in time, and they had to put it behind lock and key. But no, we don't control what happens in there.
And so what? Like right now, I'm sitting here. You can see me on the video stream, holding my nose because I can't feel my nose because it's so cold.
Oh my goodness!
Now, give me about a half an hour, and I might be sitting here in my t-shirt and underwear because I'll be sweating to death.
I was gonna say, if you want to warm up, step outside for a few minutes. You'll get warm pretty quick.
It's so weird because you know how this goes. If you're in really, really, really cold like AC, like you've been in a restaurant for some reason, they got the AC at like 15 below.
Yeah.
And you're in there, you go and get a hoodie out of your car or a jacket so you can eat in the restaurant.
Sure.
That's what this room feels like in here for a little bit, and then, of course, it'll switch.
Do you know why restaurants do that?
To get you out of there quicker?
Yes, they don't stay as long. They want you to be, and they're not going to like freeze you out usually. It'll be slightly uncomfortable to the point of like, oh, well, maybe you don't hang around. They still want you to obviously eat and, buy as much food as possible. But like that whole, hey, maybe we'll sit around and talk for another 20 minutes. They're like, no, let's get out of here because I'm kind of cold.
You think they look over and go, okay, table 6 is finished eating. Blow the AC right over that table right now.
Exactly.
Wow, it's gotten a lot colder, so let's get out of here.
You can take a deep dive and you can go down a rabbit hole from this if you want to. There's a lot of like the strategy and elements of how those kind of businesses do those kind of things is kind of pretty interesting.
I'll throw another one real quick and then we'll get our Firehouse Sub Text the Hour and maybe I'll get to the story. I've noticed over the last so many years, like Starbucks, back when I used to troll the Starbucks all the time, they had couches everywhere and nice comfy chairs and people would hang out and drink coffee and just chill maybe for the whole day. They don't have that as much anymore.
No, they don't.
And the thought is they don't want you sitting around all day because typically you buy a coffee, you sit for a few hours, you might get one other thing, but you're just sitting around loitering and reading or whatever.
Yeah.
They don't want people just sitting there all day anymore.
Yeah.
Get your stuff and get out.
Well, and I imagine a lot of their business probably comes through the drive-through these days anyway. So I don't know if
and the app where people order and pick it up.
Exactly. So I don't think they're as dependent on those people that just sit around all day and drink one cup of coffee for the 4 hours that they're there.
And then they
while they work on their screenplay in front of everyone.
Exactly. Or they might go, you know what? I need a coffee cake. Good. You've spent $4, $5, and you've been here for 6 hours.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. Firehouse Sub Text the Hour at 803-404-6100. What do you got?
Money says Kansas football is garbage. Kansas lost 14 years in a row to Kansas State. They're absolutely garbage. Always will be. You would be right up until last year. They finally got a good head coach, and they went 9-4 without their starting quarterback for the vast majority of last season. Kansas football is better than they have been.
Yeah, and the year before, I think they finished 6-6 and went to a bowl game.
Yeah, like Lance Leipold has come in and made that program instantly better.
Lance Leipold is another guy. When he shows up, do you know who is up on his shoulders? Winning.
Yes. He won everywhere.
Wisconsin Whitewater won national championships. The University of Buffalo was a ranked team under Lance Leipold. Lance Leipold last year won 9 games at Kansas. Year before that, they made a bowl game. Texter, love you to death. Please feel free to participate.
Yeah.
You would have been right for like 20 years in a row since the Mangini era.
Mangini when he took him to that Orange Bowl.
Took him to an Orange Bowl and then got fired because he was mean to everybody.
Yes. Since then, they've been
hot garbage.
The butt of jokes, and I get it. But now they've turned a corner, and if you told me Kansas won the Big 12 this year, I'm not going to sit here with my mouth open saying, oh, my God, how'd that happen?
So, Texter, we love you, and you have been right for a long time, but now it's different. Kansas football is different. So, appreciate the text at 803-404-6100. How weird is it Kansas and Kansas State are good at the same time?
I know. It is kind of weird. Like Kansas State's perennially been one of those teams in the era of Kansas being bad that's popped up. And, obviously they won the Big 12 2 seasons. They got to beat TCU to do it. But
it started with Bill Snyder in the mid-'90s. It was one of the greatest rebuilding jobs in the history of college football, what he did at Kansas State.
Yep.
And I read something really, it was funny. He was so detail-oriented. He came into the team like cafeteria or dining hall and sat down to eat, got up, walked back over and said, what brand of salt are we using? And they say, it's not anymore. I have a brand of salt we're going to start using. He was that crazy detailed oriented. I mean,
Sure.
Bill Snyder was a mad genius.
I thought he was going to coach till he was 100.
We got to 98. It's crazy. A phenomenal coach. All right, really quick. So, you want a good seat at a minor league baseball game?
Sure.
Lake County Captains, East Lake, Ohio, partnering up with Roto-Rooter, unveiling the first ever Roto-Rooter Toilet Row. This unique seating experience, a groundbreaking first in minor league baseball, will offer fans the opportunity to enjoy the game from the comfort of a deluxe, high-end toilet positioned right behind home plate.
Now, you know somebody's going to be very irresponsible with this, right?
That's what I was thinking. They're called throne seats. Also, you'll get mouthwash, combs, and gum. Keeps you fresh through the game. And to ensure the VIP experience, you'll also have someone who waits on you in toilet row. You know what's going to happen, right?
I gave it 3 games before someone's arrested for indecent exposure.
Absolutely. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, wait a minute. Sir, please. It's not really that kind of a toilet, sir. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head. What's trending at 2, sponsored by Gamecock Traditions and Traditions Fine Jewelry here on the game. Nick Eamon-Wari, again, we've been kind of flowing these cuts through the show. Nick was at the Palmetto Autograph event. And now we're going to move on to the last 2 cuts we have, Tyler. First of all, here's Nick talking about, first of all, being better at preparing. Now, this is going into Nick's 3rd season. Really a starter pretty much his whole career, got forced into a starting role his freshman year.
Yep.
So here's Nick talking about now being a veteran, getting better at preparing.
I think I just know how to prepare a little bit better now, like take care of my body, just know what I need to do for the season. Like it's it's gonna be my 3rd fall camp, my 2nd spring, so I know what's going on a little bit more. I can help the younger guys, also by helping myself and being able to lead a little bit better.
I mean, you're just a veteran now. You know what's up. You've been through this multiple times. You know, you understand.
Yeah, absolutely. And while the whole baptism by fire approach isn't the most ideal, when you had somebody like him that got thrust into a starting role, like you mentioned, right out of the gate due to injury in his freshman year, that puts you that much farther ahead of a curve with more experience than you probably otherwise would have had your freshman year. And again, another year under your belt last year. So yeah, he's kind of one of the elder guys to be able to turn to in this secondary this year.
And just you know, DQ Smith also in his 3rd season. So you start to kind of evolve yourself into that leadership role, right? You just do. Some guys are more leaders than others. Look, some guys don't want to be leaders. Some guys can't be leaders. But the guys who leading is one of those things, Tyler, always like either you got it or you don't.
Yeah.
Right? You can't make yourself a leader. Like you can't all of a sudden decide, I'm leading. Well, you've never led ever. Well, I'm going to do it. It's I shouldn't say it's impossible, but it's very difficult to all of a sudden turn that kind of switch.
Yeah, so you have to have that. You have to be born with that personality.
And another thing, too, is how you lead. Like some guys lead by example. They're not the most vocal cats in the world. They lead by example.
Yeah.
Other guys are very vocal in how they lead. It just depends. I'll give you a quick one. Like watching the Baltimore Ravens evolve with Ed Reed and Ray Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
Ray Lewis was vocal, especially in front of the national cameras. Ray was very vocal.
Yeah.
Ed was not that guy, but Ed behind the scenes was so respected as a leader because Ed was very good dude. Ed Reed is one of my favorite people in sports.
Oh, phenomenal.
But he's not the vocal guy that Ray Lewis was.
So we obviously know Ray for, his pregame dance, coming out of the tunnel, all that kind of stuff. And he always had those fiery locker room speeches. I remember Joe Flacco telling the story of like, I love Ray to death, but most of that stuff he said didn't make any sense. He was just throwing words out there.
There was one of the great, and again, Ray was one of those guys, either you gravitated to him or you just shook your head.
Sure.
Because Ray was, so he's like, the joke would be some of those guys would call him Preacher Ray, and some of those guys would go, oh, the national media's here, Ray's going to start going, whatever. But some guys, look, there was a lot of Ray that was legit.
Right.
But Ray also had a little extra something at times that guys would kind of, one of the most interesting when you're going up to Flacco was there was a moment, Ray was on the sidelines. He's getting everybody together and doing all that stuff. And there was a running back with the Ravens named Chester Taylor who was walking by, and he's watching Ray. And Chester Taylor had no clue that, you could see him on television.
Right.
And he stopped and looked and gave an eye roll and just kept walking. And, there was a small percentage of guys who were like that with Ray.
Yeah.
But Ed Reed was, in their minds, totally, genuinely just a rock. He wasn't the guy looking for the camera. He wasn't looking for... So some people thought Ray was just kind of doing that stuff for the camera.
Yeah.
No one ever thought Ed Reed was nothing but genuine.
Right.
Because Ed Reed was. He's just genuine guy. And that was... Look, do I think Ray was genuine in essence? Yes. Do I think Ray also at times played to the camera? Yeah.
Totally.
Ed Reed wasn't that guy.
No.
So I'm just saying there's two different kinds of ways to lead. And both of them are very good when it comes to winning. Because, again, Ray prepared his tail off to be a winner, to be fair. Nobody watched more film, and so did Ed Reed. They were film nuts.
As long as you're doing your job, then that's all that matters. Whether you're the vocal guy or the quiet guy, as long as you're going out there and you're executing, you can still lead, whether it be vocally or by example.
Right. So circling back to Nick Eamon-Wari, now you're into that part where, okay, you're a junior now, you're going your 3rd year, you've started a lot of games. how do you evolve into the leadership position if that is where you're going and gravitating? I mean, Nick. I mean, you hear Nick do sound bites. I feel like he's got a pretty strong personality, and he's not afraid, like he did what he said. He put his name on the crazy, how crazy good the defense is going to be.
Yeah.
So Nick, my guess is vocally he has no problem falling into that type of leadership.
Sure.
And you need that especially at defense, man. You need a leader, the guy's not afraid to speak up and like walk in and go, hey, get your head out of your backside and let's go play some football.
Yep.
But you need to lead by examples, guys, too, who just grind and grind and grind. Everybody grinds with them because you don't want to be, they're grinding. You got to go grind too, right?
Exactly.
And then you get that you need to get that other element that no one likes to speak of, the guy that's crazy. Not crazy, not Vontaze Burfict crazy that costs you games with stupid penalties, but that guy who lives on the edge of crazy all the time, who is nuts and has no problem being nuts. But it's a good kind of nuts.
Yeah.
You need those three types on defense. Because that nuts guy, he's going to go out there. He's not afraid to go jump in the stands with the opposing fan base and go at it with them.
Right.
Or he's not afraid to, be that guy who's going to step up and,
What position is that more likely to come from, in your opinion?
I think it used to be a no-brainer. It used to be the linebackers back in the day. I mean, now it could be the edge guy. Could be that guy on defense too. Because I feel like the farther away you are from the ball, the least likely. I mean, like here, DJ Swearinger was that guy, to be fair.
Sure.
For those really good South Carolina teams, from what I've been told.
Yeah.
So I guess you could have a safety, because safeties come up and thump and hit people. Linebackers also. Maybe the interior defensive line guys, because they're the guys that get beat up all the time to make everybody else look good.
Sure.
Maybe those guys up front now, those interior guys, because again, you're in the battle like every play, and you're getting hit from every angle, and you're the occupying blocker guy, so the other dudes can clean everything up and look like heroes.
Yeah.
So maybe those are the guys that get the most respect, and maybe they're a little crazier than others because of what they deal with. So if I was thinking, it could come from any of these levels, but maybe there.
I'd probably lean towards linebacker because that's kind of the group that does a little bit of everything in the defense. They come up and run support, drop back in coverage, so they kind of have to be versatile and all over the place, which I feel like can justify them being a little bit crazy.
Yeah, and you want that. You just want him edgy.
Sure.
You want him to be right up on the edge of, again, don't go over and be Vontaze Burfict.
No, don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy, but just be that guy where the other team is looking at each other going, that guy's crazy.
Yeah, that guy's a little out there, a little wired a little differently.
That deck ain't full of 52.
Yeah.
That's kind of what you want from a guy. And that guy's not afraid to, like I said, get into a little, like, if he feels like the team needs a little something, to go out there when the other team's warming up and walk in the middle of the warm-up, just to cause a little something.
Sure.
You need that guy, because you're going to need that guy at some point in a long season.
Gives everybody a little bit of juice.
Yes. So that's a three I think you need. I think you need the lead by examples guys. You need the vocal guys. And then you need that. And you can't have a lot of them. Just one or two borderline crazy cats.
Yeah.
On a defense. All right. So there's Nick. And the last one with Nick is talking about the progress of the safety room. Tyler, cut 4.
Man, we got a bunch of dogs in that safety room, so Coach Grady's really been doing good, kind of like cross-training us, getting us at playing nickel, playing the free safety, strong safety, being confident in all three positions. So we got a lot of competition, but it's all love between us. Like, we don't really take it as like I'm going against him. It's all like we're working together and next man up, rotation and stuff. So that's how we think about it. Come along.
Yeah, you want to think of it as healthy competition. The better we all make each other, the better the safety room is, the better the team can be. It's very simple.
For sure.
And they seem like they do have a healthy kind of environment and relationship there with Smith and Kilgore and with Nick.
And it's kind of funny because I'd say safety is probably the one position group we've not talked as much about this offseason, because it's really the one place outside of Gerald Kilgore you didn't really add anybody. You know what I mean? So you have your usual returning guys, Eamon Worry, DQ Smith, Jelon Kilgore, that are kind of occupy those three spots. Not really a lot of competition to it, so we haven't spent as much time talking about them.
Yeah, the only other guy that's going to be in the mix, if he can stay healthy, is David Spalding, who feels like he's been around forever, but Spalding just can't stay healthy enough to get on the field to give them any meaningful reps. Hopefully that changes this year, but you're right. We feel like we know the safety room.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, Switching gears real quick, what's trending at 2, sponsored by Gamecock Traditions and Traditions Fine Jewelry here on the Halftime Show. Terry Ford and Tyler Head on the Game. Over the weekend, I saw a couple things going back to Texas A&M.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with Jim Schlossnagle.
Yep.
And the leaving to go to Texas. Schlossnagle did an interview with the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Schloss claimed that Trev Alberts, the new AD at Texas A&M, started in March.
Mm-hmm.
Not the guy that hired Schloss, by the way. Alberts, according to Schlossnagle, told Schloss before an NCAA tournament regional game that it would be okay for Schloss to move on.
Okay.
The context of the alleged advice was Schlossnagle voicing his frustration with the speed of the renovations at Olsen Field.
Mm-hmm.
Quote from the article. Trev came to me the day before the regional to have a conversation. He asked me if I was frustrated. I told him that I had some frustration with how slow the ballpark process was going and that it was tough to operate without a sport administrator. But I was committed to working through it. He then made a comment to me, kind of comparing his situation of leaving his alma mater, Nebraska. He said to me, quote, Jim, if you ever don't feel like this is the place for you, that's okay, and it's okay to move on.
Interesting.
Let me say this. You don't say that to Schlossnagle.
You shouldn't.
Not the guy that's eventually going to get you to your second College World Series in 3 years, a guy you hired to get you to Omaha consistently. You don't say that.
This is a guy that if he was an under 500 coach, you already had thoughts in the back of your mind about firing him. That's what you say to somebody to avoid paying a buyout. Like, hey, we'd love to keep you around, but if you got another opportunity, go take it, man. Like, not a guy that is going to take you potentially to where you aspire to be as a program.
I have 3 thoughts on this really quick. A, who the hell are you, Trev Alberts? First of all, I don't know what kind of interview gold or what kind of reference page or what kind of blackmail pictures you have. You did nothing at Nebraska to deserve this gig.
Sure.
0. Nothing, not a thing that says you can go take this job with all of the resources you have at your disposal. That's number 1.
Right.
Number 2, was this Trev Alberts with the Trev Albert? Because Trev's got some ego.
Mm-hmm.
You don't believe me? Ask Trev how great Trev is. Is this Alberts?
He's got the Reggie Jackson
I
syndrome.
stir the drink, baby. So did Trev Alberts come in with I didn't hire this guy.
Yeah.
He's frustrated over what? Who is he? He's not my guy. I'll get my guy. Well, this guy is one of the best coaches in college baseball there, Trev. Maybe you don't pay attention to baseball because you're kind of a football dude.
Yeah.
This is one of the best coaches in college baseball.
Well, and it makes you wonder if he'd been given a vote of confidence. Hey, man, we want you here. We think you're doing great things with the program. We want to do what we can to keep you around. Does he take the Texas job? Does he even start entertaining that? Does he have a conversation? Because here's the thing. You have that conversation with Trev Albert, and you call up your buddy Chris Del Conte, or he calls you up, however it goes, like, hey, you want to come coach Texas? Yeah, I think I'll come.
I don't feel like
very
I got
wanted
support
here.
of the AD.
Yeah.
AD's basically saying, hey, man, if you don't feel like you're okay here, feel free to go. Really?
Really? All right. Well,
Seriously?
Yeah. Funny enough, I have an opportunity to go somewhere else.
Look at that.
Let me take that up.
And ready, and according to this article, and again, there's 2 sides to every story, Trev came to me and asked me if I was frustrated. So Albert started the conversation. Schlossnagle didn't kick the door open and go, hey, what is your name again? AD boy? Let me talk to you about the stadium thing. I'm frustrated. Albert started it. He poked the bear on it.
Sure did.
And Schlossnagle was just being honest. And Albert should have said, hey, Schloss, we love you. I got your back. You're our guy. We're going to get this done. Just please be patient. No. If you feel like leaving, it's okay.
The plot thickens.
Uh-huh. All right, we'll get back in here. What's trending at 2, sponsored by Gamecock Traditions on the Game. What's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Terry Ford, Tyler had one last little Texas A&M piece in our What's Trending at 2. This is Kendall Rogers off of the Twitter X's there, Tyler. Talking about the hire that Texas A&M is making for the baseball coach, who is not a high-profile guy in any way, shape, or form.
No, he wasn't on any hot boards for any other jobs.
Now, Coach Early, who's getting this job, let me read this from Kendall Rogers real quick. Scoop on the A&M search. A&M made a very furious run at Tony Vitello, shot, but Vitello stayed put and loyal to a program is giving him the keys to the castle. And by the way, Vitello is going to get rewarded handsomely in Knoxville.
Yes.
A&M also went after UVA's Brian O'Connor. Very difficult to get him out of Charlottesville. Link Jarrett at Florida State was never an option. Link loves Florida State and went back with Martin's blessing.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way he was turning his back on the Noles. Skip Johnson at Oklahoma was never offered the job. He and Tom Walter were taken off the list when the Early option arose. According to reports, that guy, Trev Alberts, was wowed by Early when he talked to him.
Mm-hmm. Should we trust what Trev Alberts says?
Because he's got a great track record of hiring baseball coaches.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. The last thing Kendall Rogers said, the surprise to me is that A&M did not take a hard look at Alabama's Rob Vaughn. A lot of people think Vaughn is a future superstar. And look, he got Alabama in the NCAAs in his first season.
Right.
Again, you're going to elevate the interim guy. What was he? I think he was the hitting coach.
He was the assistant coach and the hitting coach. Here's where this gets interesting, though, because when Schlossnagle was introduced as the Texas head coach last week, he brought his entire staff. They even have the graphic on Texas Baseball's Twitter of Early, photoshopped basically into the Texas uniform because he was supposed to be his assistant hitting coach or his assistant head coach and hitting coach.
Mm-hmm. Oops.
Oops. But, kind of like what we saw with Monty Lee here, a lot of the players supported this move being made. And from an A&M standpoint, because they had so many guys jump in the portal, I can understand this. Now, since this has been announced, their shortstop, Camarillo, as well as their designated hitter, Hayden Schott, have all withdrew their names from the transfer portal. So you have an opportunity to maybe retain a couple of these guys by keeping Early on as your head coach.
But my thing would be, that's good for this year.
Yes.
But is there any evidence this guy is going to continue to keep Texas A&M baseball at a high level, especially... Look, Rob Vaughn won at Maryland. Rob Vaughn won last year at Alabama. That's a better resume.
Yes.
Last time I checked, you got a lot of money in your bank account in College Station.
Right.
And what about Skip Johnson at Oklahoma? He's been to Omaha.
Mm-hmm.
But you went for this guy because Trev Alberts wants to put the stamp on his program, the Trev Alberts stamp on the program. And he's going, I found the guy.
Is Texas A&M going to have a Trev Albert problem for a long time?
I'm feeling there's already, I found the guy. No one sees this but me. I found the guy. And you hire that guy partly because you want to look good.
Sure. Oh, he definitely seems like the guy that wants the pat on the back. Like, man, you did that. You did it, man.
Trev, you're so smart.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, Trev, you're so good. He's that guy on Facebook or the girl guy on Facebook that when they get the new haircut, they do the selfie of themselves so everybody can see how good they look.
Or the one where they say, I'm so ugly, just so they can get people say, no, you look so good.
Beautiful. I'm having a bad hair day. No, you look beautiful.
It's amazing. They need that gratification.
That feels like Trev Alberts.
It's Trev Alberts.
So basically, you ran off Schlossnagle, it feels like, or you didn't do anything to keep him.
Again, if this conversation that we're talking about here, like, if you had another opportunity to go somewhere else, you don't go for it, buddy.
Right. If you don't feel like this is the right place for you, you go ahead. I did it in Nebraska. It feels like Trev Alberts wants to make A&M the Trev Alberts program.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, we do. Good luck. Good luck, Aggies. Also, what's trending at 2 here, sponsored by Gamecock Traditions and Traditions Fine Jewelry. Josh Pate, real quick, Tyler. Let's get to this one. Josh Pate, excellent college football podcast you can find on YouTube. Josh Pate recently on his podcast through CBS talking about Oregon measuring up in the Big Ten. That's cut 18, man. Hit that when you get a sec.
The big question when you're talking about style of play in the Big Ten is kind of the same way they talk in the South. Can you withstand the physical punishment of a conference schedule? Even though technically it still does qualify as a question for Oregon and will be until we see them go through it, I got to tell you guys, as much as maybe the preview magazine culture would suggest the West Coast teams could be in for a rude awakening, I don't believe in saying West Coast teams. Like when in classificational terms, we're not talking about West Coast teams. You look at Oregon and you look at Washington or UCLA or USC, that's a different kind of team. Or let me put it a different way. If I peeled the Oregon jerseys off of Oregon and I put LSU jerseys on Oregon, they would pass very well for some of the vintage LSU teams. The kind of LSU team that comes into your building and you've got ninth row 45-yard line seats and you're there with your dad and you look and the guys that aren't even playing look like monsters, look like aliens. Where do they find them? Well, they grow them in the South. Dan Lanning's gone and gotten a lot of them to the point where he has turned Oregon's roster into that. And my point there is, not only is Oregon prepared to survive and maybe even thrive in the Big Ten, they're prepared to win it. Outside of Ohio State, and including Ohio State, if we're talking O-line, frankly, this is one of the very few rosters in college football that's built to withstand that, thrive in it, and then possibly make some noise in the playoff.
We'll see. Josh is all in on Oregon. We'll see. I mean, again,
A lot of people are.
A lot of people are. We'll see. I'm just one of those people. I will take a step back and let's watch how this whole thing develops with Oregon. But a lot of people love them. And Lanning and Cristobal, some of this is still Cristobal's guys. And Cristobal can recruit. Problem is Cristobal coaching the Cristobal recruits at times. But we'll see. And Oregon rolling, if I can ever get my computer to cooperate. Real quick, with Oregon, when you look at the schedule, I mean, they got Idaho. Too bad it's not in the Kibbe Dome. God, that'd be great. It's interesting. They got Idaho and Boise State in the non-conference. Then they travel to Corvallis to a rebuilding Oregon State squad. Then they go to UCLA. They'll get Michigan State and Corvallis at Autzen in Eugene. They'll also get Ohio State at home. Then they travel to Purdue. Purdue's rebuilding. They'll get Illinois at home. Again, that's not a very exciting team, but you know what Illinois does? They're physical.
Yes.
You get Michigan in Ann Arbor. Now, I don't know what Michigan's going to be, but they will be physical. They might not be very talented like they've been, but they will be physical.
Right.
You get my Terps. Okay. You get them in Eugene. You got to go to Madison. And then you get UW. My point is, the Illinois, the Michigan, the Wisconsin, the Ohio State, you might win some of those games. How is that beating through that season going to affect you as you move forward?
Yeah, it's what's the after effects? How do you roll into the next week? How healthy are you? All those kind of things. Because it is going to be a different week-to-week grind compared to what you had in the Pac-12.
And that's my point. It's not about talent. Oregon's got a bunch of it. I mean, look at the quarterback. I mean, Dylan Gabriel, I think, is a great get. Mm-hmm. They got one of the best wide receiver rooms in the country.
Yep.
They're going to run the football. That offensive line is top 3 or 5 in America. They've got talent. Their defense, like you said, got better than it was the year before. All that sounds good until you take on the week by week of the physical pounding that you're going to get inflicted upon you in the Big Ten. You're going to give some of that back, obviously. But I'm just saying, we'll see. Josh Pate's all in. All right, greatest day in the history of the world, 1st of July. That's coming up. And also, we'll try to get some more what's trending at 2. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head here on the game. July 1st is one of the best days in the history, the greatest day in the history of the world. Because it brings us one of the most kooky days in sports that we laugh about, we shake our head about, we joke about. July 1st is Bobby Bonilla Day. And if you don't know this, or you hear of it and go, well, what is this? Bobby Bonilla, every July 1st, starting in 2011 and going until 2035, Bobby Bonilla will crack open his banking app and see a transaction in his checking or savings account for $1.193 million from the New York Mets every year. Bonilla hasn't played since 2001. I think he was 39 years old, played for the St. Louis Cardinals. Bobby Bonilla has not played baseball for 24 years, 23 years, and is making more money right now than Gunnar Henderson of the Orioles, who is, second in the majors in homers, and will be an all-star. Bobby Bonilla makes more money also than Ellie De La Cruz in Cincinnati, Garrett Crochet, the pitcher in Chicago, Anthony Volpe, the shortstop for the Yankees. All of them solid to really good players this year. And Bobby Bonilla, at 61 years old, will make more money than them sitting in his man cave. It's hilarious. But Bobby Bonilla gets money, gets more than just that. Bonilla has another deferred contract. It's a plan with the Mets, again, the Mets, and the Baltimore Orioles that pays him $5,000 a year for 25 years. So ready? Bobby Bonilla right now is double dipping. He's getting that almost $1.2 million from the Mets, and he's getting another $500,000 in a separate deferred payment plan of $500,000 from the Mets and Orioles. So now we're looking at $1.7 million a year Bobby Bonilla is getting in deferred payments for doing nothing. You're saying, Terry, how the bleep did this happen? All right. If you haven't heard the story, in 2000, the Mets agreed to buy out the remaining $5.9 million on Bonilla's contract. However, instead of paying Bonilla the $5.9 million at the time, the Mets agreed to make annual payments of nearly $1.2 million for 25 years. You're saying, but Terry, that's ridiculous. It's a lot more than $5.9 million. That's ridiculous. Yes. The arrangement started again July 1st, 2011, and it included a negotiated 8% interest rate. Now, at the time, Mets ownership was invested in a, wait for it, Bernie Madoff account. Yes, that guy that promised double-digit returns on the investment. And the Mets were poised to make a significant profit if the Madoff account delivered. Obviously, it didn't work out. So the Mets did this for a purpose. They thought they were going to be making a ton more loot because of this account through Bernie Madoff. Obviously, Bernie Madoff made no one money but Bernie Madoff. So now this Bobby Bonilla deferred payment plan looks ridiculous. Crazy. Now, there's some others besides Bonilla. Max Scherzer will receive $105 million total from the Nationals that'll be paid out through 2028. Some other guys who don't play anymore, like Brett Saberhagen. Brett Saberhagen, former excellent Major League pitcher, Cy Young Award winner, pitched for multiple teams. Saberhagen will receive $250,000 a year from the Mets for 25 years. Yeah, the Mets again. Those payments also began in 2004. And this was the inspiration for the Bonilla deal. So basically, the Mets are paying all sorts of deferred money. Manny Ramirez will collect $24.2 million total from the Red Sox through 2026. Ken Griffey Jr. receives $3.59 million from the Reds every year through 2024 as a deferral from his 9-year, $116 million contract in 2000. Chris Davis, this one's vile, again involves my Orioles. Davis's arrangement with the Orioles means he collects $59 million in deferred payments during a 15-year stretch. He's like Bobby Bonilla Jr. It started last year and will continue through 2037. Davis will receive $9.16 million in 24 and 25, $3.5 million from 26 through 30-32, $1.4 million from 33 to 37. An awful, terrible contract. Now, Shohei Ohtani also is getting a lot of deferred money from the Dodgers. Ohtani is being paid just $2 million annually during the 10-year length of his deal with the Dodgers. From 2034 to 2043, dig this, Ohtani will receive $68 million per year. Let me run that by you again. $68 million per year from 2034 to 2043. It gives the Dodgers some short-term flexibility regarding basically the luxury tax, and gives them a chance to also implement their roster with other excellent players. So think about that one. Yes, the Bobby Bonilla one is crazy. We went over why. But Shohei Ohtani, from 2034 to 2043, will make $68 million a year.
Well, the Bonilla one is ridiculous from the concept of the fact that he's going to be getting these payments until he's, what, 73 years old? 71 years old.
I believe.
And you and I looked it up earlier. He hasn't swung a bat in Major League Baseball since 2001.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been getting these payments for, well, he's right at the halfway point now, 12 years, going until 2035. But yeah, the Ohtani thing from a pure number standpoint of per year, that's going to be hard to beat.
Again, all these things, once you get into these, you go, wow, seriously?
Sure.
But when they're done, the financial side of it, you would sit down and they would explain it to you and you would go,
yeah,
okay, I get it. But just from the purpose of, wow, you're paying all this deferred money to dudes who, Brett Saberhagen, Ken Griffey Jr., guys like this, Chris Davis. It's crazy how much deferred money is getting paid to guys.
But we think about it, there's no salary cap in baseball.
No.
You can spend absorbent amounts of money. And we talked about this a little bit earlier. Considering the fact that the Mets are on one of the higher-end payrolls in Major League Baseball, this is nothing to them.
Yeah,
they scrounged this up in the couch at their headquarters and handed it to Bobby Bonilla.
They could, look, Steve Cohen's a bazillionaire.
Yeah.
Steve Cohen right now could go get what's left in this deferred payment deal. He could get it in pennies and drop it off at Bobby Bonilla's house if he wanted to.
Sure.
But the Mets, it's funny. Cohen, look, you can see, he's had good moments and bad moments as an owner. But he takes this and celebrates it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you do if you're the Mets. Look, you get it. A lot of people laugh at you over this thing. It's a joke to a lot of people. Embrace it. They were going to bring Bobby Bonilla in every year and maybe give him the check like at the pitcher's mound. Sure. Maybe Bonilla's not down with it. Maybe Cohen changed his mind. But that's what I would do. I'd embrace the ridiculousness and the absurdity of it.
Sure,
and say,
make it. I don't know if they're playing a home game tonight, but make it Bobby Bonilla Day. Lean into it.
Yeah, let him throw out the first pitch. Have Bobby Bonilla go back to 2001 and have big prices through the concession stand of what it was like the last year Bonilla played. Have a blast with this thing.
I like that. That's a good idea.
What the heck? Go for it.
Why not?
All right, that's most of the greatest day in the history of the world, Bobby Bonilla Day, July 1st. All right, real quick, the NBA is going cuckoo in free agency, obviously. Paul George is signing a max deal where he's going to make over $50 million a year. And you're talking about guaranteed money? It's all guaranteed money. And George is going to go with the Sixers to go with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, who just signed a max deal as well. And the Sixers, they feel like now have a playmaking point guard. They have a wing that can score a ton and defend, and they have a big who can play inside out and is unguardable. And the Sixers also, those guys will play defense as well. Sixers feel really good. Now, is Paul George one of the best players in the NBA? Like, is he Kevin Durant or any of the high-level guys or LeBron is prime? No. But just guys get paid when it's their time. And Paul George is a high-level player.
Yep.
And a high-level two-way player. And he's going to be making over $50 million a year. Firehouse Subtext the Hour. Next at 803-404-6100 on the Halftime Show on the Game. Firehouse sub text to the hour at 803-404-6100. Elijah Campbell's here playing Jay Phillips as Jay's off beaching somewhere.
Beaching, beering.
He's beaching and beering. And it's like, again, as you get older, and neither one of you know this yet because you do not have children, at least you haven't admitted to me, either one of you.
It's not that I'm aware
maybe
of.
both of you are going to be on Maury Povich next week. I don't know. But like when you get to the, you have
Never
kids
say never.
and you get to the beach, my line was always, look, I love you all dearly, but unless you have a bone sticking out of you or you're on fire, leave me the hell alone.
You don't need me.
I'll see you Friday.
You know, and again, neither one of us have children here, but just now that I've become an adult, what goes into planning vacations and just little trips like that, I now understand why my dad always seemed so stressed out when we were on vacation. I was like, I thought we were chilling, have a good time, like navigating, obviously getting there, the logistics of the housing, the hotel, whatever it may be, keeping up with everything. Us kids complaining about things left and right.
Oh, sure.
You know, figuring out where you're going to eat for dinner. Like, I get why dads are still stressed out on vacation.
What I've done is, first of all, let somebody else pay for it. No, what I've done is I look at a vacation like this. Our lives are scheduled Monday through Friday all the time. We got crap, no matter what. You've got a schedule. I get the vacation once we get the hotel, the whatever, the house. You get in there, you hunker in, you get all the crap in, you get everything unloaded. Now, here's the plan. There's no plan.
Yeah.
My plan is to leave at the end of the week. Besides that, it's fluid.
And that's what I've had to introduce my wife to, is my way of doing vacation, which is very similar. My family, we've always just been like, hey, we're going to go to the beach for a week. We don't know what we're going to do. May just go sit on the beach, may go fishing, may go to a restaurant. Like, we just go with it.
Yep.
But like my wife's family is very scheduled. Like, all right, on this day, we're going to do this and this and this and this. And I'm like, that's not me. We're just going to go and we're just going to figure it out when we get there. Like, that's my vibe.
Right.
I wing it. I wing it so much.
Yeah.
But I think the one thing that I know I did as a kid that I could not handle as an adult if I were to have children is, like, in the 12-hour car ride, asking constantly, how far away are we?
Well, see, now.
I'm surprised my dad never strangled me.
Now we have so many entertainment options where, like, you just hand the kid the iPad or let him listen to music or whatever, to where they're distracted. Because back then, like, hey, maybe you had a magazine or something you could read in the back of the car.
Right.
But for the most part, you had to be coherent and paying attention to what was going
or
on.
you played some stupid road game.
Sure.
Right?
Oh, all the time. The,
Can
the
you-
license plate game.
Can you play I Spy for 8 hours straight? We'll see.
I'm going to tell you
You're going to
right
find
now,
out.
I will tell you that through 4 kids, I hate I Spy. I hate that game like nobody's
You'll be
business.
happy to never
You know
find
how
that
many
out
hundreds
again.
of games of I Spy I played as a parent?
Let me ask you this, Elijah. Were you, like myself, entrusted with the MapQuest directions when going on vacation as a child?
Absolutely not.
No,
Nope,
that wasn't
my
you.
parents would not trust me with that.
See, I'm the ones that had to show them how to print it out first. So I'd be sitting back there with the 4 pages of directions. All right, in
You're navigating from the back seat.
114 miles, we're going to take this exit.
It's so good.
Hope you keep up.
I remember MapQuest was the thing. You had to print it out, and you thought that was fantastic. You actually...
Oh, that was cutting edge technology.
Oh, because before it was like, okay, take this road. And what? I think we take that road.
Oh, you had the map that stretched
Oh, it
out
was awful.
the length of
Rand
the front
McNally.
seat. Like,
The Atlas.
hey, that road that we're on isn't on this map.
Or this one. Hey, what? You had to turn at the last exit.
Yeah.
Why'd you tell me? I just saw it on the map.
All right, we're going to get into the town. We're going to find a gas station. We're going to ask the person there how we get the rest of the way.
And then, of course, you know, Dad never wants to go in and ask.
Oh, there's
No.
nothing more infuriating than asking for directions.
Well, you know, you go down. Okay, you look right there. Okay, you see that telephone pole. You don't turn there. Keep going past that telephone pole. All right, 3rd sticker bush on the left, right next to the 2nd red house. You take a right. No, and take a left. You take a right and a left.
When,
and left and
when
right.
you, when you get to my Meemaw's house on the right, that's when you turn.
And trust me, you'll know when it is.
You'll know it when you see it.
It's phenomenal.
My favorite thing is people tell me, you'll know it when you see it. In my head, I'm like, no, I won't. I've
I'm
never
not.
seen it. I doubt it.
need something very specific here.
I highly doubt I'll know it when I see it.
All right, Firehouse subtext the hour 803-404-6100. We got Bub.
Let's see. Saul actually weighs in and says, just got back from vacation late last week and had to play golf to relax after getting back.
Yeah, people get so stressed on it, right? Now I won't lie. My girlfriend goes crazy nuts because she's like your wife, the planner with the Excel spreadsheets and you know all the stuff we need. But she's like me. Once we get there, there's no plan.
Yeah.
There's
It's
no
out
plan.
the window.
You can have a set, like, 3 or 4 things that you think you're probably going to do, but like, no, we don't have to be there at 12 o'clock tomorrow.
Right.
Like, we'll get there when we get there.
That's me. Because my ex, her, and they're great people, but her dad's an ex-military guy. You know what that means?
Oh, yeah.
Very scheduled.
Okay, you can go to the latrine at 06:30.
600 hours, you better be awake.
Exactly. And we got to be at the gate at Disney at 0900. For optimum Disney experience, we have to
All right.
be there when the gates
You have
open at
20
0900.
minutes to eat breakfast.
Barely.
Now.
Just, I mean, again, I love them, but like the pool, like we had the the timeshare condo thing in
Yeah.
Orlando, like everybody, and we're leaving to go on the itinerary to Disney, and these people are sitting like at the pool, knocking down beers. And I look at my ex and go, "Can we just go over there today?" No, there's a plan. There's a plan.
Can we break the clock today?
Plus, my dad would shoot you. He still has his gun. All right, so you got Mike Uva hanging
That's
in with
right.
you today, sir.
We're going to welcome Texas and OU to the
All
SEC.
right, that's coming up. Tyler, good job. Post-game show with Elijah and Mike Uva from Gamecock Central. Coming up.